Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
You ate leaf tobacco? We're up in one.
Oh,
Tell me about this.
well, I was just telling the story the other day. When I was
You
in,
swallowed it?
I was just telling this story because we had a bunch of the guys I work with, and then this other dude, Jared Outlaw, who are all big dip guys. We were having a conversation about dip.
Is Jared the flip-flop flesher?
No,
that's Seth.
That's a guy named Seth. A lot of the guys I used to work with, or not, a lot of the guys I work with did and do, they're horrible tobacco
Dippers.
addicts. Dip.
Yeah.
Because they're all workers, so they don't smoke because it keeps their hands free. But I was explaining to them my aversion, and I feel like it traces to when I was in 5th grade. We had to make agricultural maps of the United States of America, and you had to glue the product. So like you get to South Dakota and you glue like a little corn kernel.
Right, I remember those.
Yeah, and put some wheat.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, like for Virginia, we had tobacco, and someone had brought in. I can't even remember what it was. Like, must have been loose leaf or plug. And me and my buddy, I don't even know if this dude remembers it. Me and my buddy Stanley Johnson ate. We took it out in the playground and ate some. And dude, I hallucinated twice as a child. once when I had to get a root canal. And once when we ate that tobacco, I mean, I was hallucinating.
What were you seeing?
I can't remember. My mom had to come get me. She had to come fetch me from school.
How old were you?
5th grade.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievably sick.
When I was in, I guess it was 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade, I really got into Tom Sawyer. Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah.
I read all his books. And they were always chewing tobacco, so I bought some. And I tried it, and I got very sick. Just like drool pouring out of my mouth. Like you get that drool.
Yeah.
That set me off from chewing tobacco.
I didn't know. So you were a Mark Twain fan?
Oh, yeah.
Have you had your kids read Mark Twain?
No, I haven't. No, I would, though.
It's a conversation starter.
It certainly is. Yeah, I mean, when you find out about, I don't know how into history they are, but when you just get into the history of people and the history of people in the United States, and those books are fascinating books in that regard. Mark Twain is like widely regarded as the first stand-up comedian.
Oh, I'd buy that.
Yeah, because he used to read his books that were humorous in front of people.
Oh.
And people think that kind of started out the idea of stand-up comedy.
Yeah, and he was quick-witted too.
Yeah.
That's good.
And then there's the name Mark Twain, which I learned from you, what it meant.
Yeah, we covered this all the time.
Yeah.
It's, should I share?
Yeah, sure, share it for
So, well, recently there has been some controversy introduced into this, but Mark Twain had worked as a riverboat pilot on the Mississippi. So he had a very informed perspective for all of his characters. A riverboat required 12 feet of water. The big paddle wheel riverboats required 12 feet of water for safe passage. So there would be a guy up on the front of the boat who'd have a rope with a weight on the end, and every fathom, a fathom is a nautical term for 6 feet, he'd have a knot tied in the rope every fathom. And he'd throw the weight out, the weight hits the bottom, and you see how deep the water is. So Mark Twain is second mark.
Which is 12 feet.
12 feet. So he describes like you're going through the fog or in the dark, and there's some guy up front going, Mark Twain. Some other guy, someone sent into us, because we were discussing this on our podcast, and a guy sent us in this book. I can't remember who the hell wrote the book, but he was saying the real thing is Mark Twain, when he was out visiting one of the silver mines in Nevada, maybe, he took to going to a bar, and the bar would log how many drinks you had on a chalkboard. Okay? So it's like your tab. In this book, this guy was saying what happened was Twain, whose birth name is Samuel Clemens, Twain would come in and order 2 drinks by saying Mark Twain, meaning put me down for
two.
2 marks.
So twain means two?
2.
I've never
I'm going
heard
to start throwing that around.
Yeah, I've never heard that used as
Twain.
two. Have you ever heard anybody use it as two? Is that like a forgotten terminology?
I don't know, but I bet Jamie's looking it up right now.
Here it
I've been on the show
That
before.
second one came out. That rumor came out. I guess he was still alive, so I guess he responded to it, according to this article.
What did he say?
There's the nom de plume of Captain Isaiah Sellers, who used to write River News for the New Orleans Picayune, and he died in 1963, and he no longer needed that signature.
1863.
So Twain sold it from Twain, from Captain Isaiah Sellers.
He said, I laid violent hands upon it without asking permission of the proprietor's remains. That is the history of the nom de plume I bear. So he stole it. Interesting. He no longer needed it because the guy was dead. So he took it from a dead guy.
If you die, I'm going to be like, my name is Joe Rogan.
Interesting. Interesting. So I wanted to tell you, I had a legitimate real-life mountain lion encounter.
Oh.
A big one. A huge one. I saw a real huge mountain lion up close. It was about 30 yards away. We were in a truck, and we were driving. It was right by a creek, and on the other side of the creek, there was a tree, and underneath that tree was a fucking giant cat.
Really?
Yeah, the guy I was with, my friend Colton, he saw it first. He goes, holy shit, look at that cat. Look at the size of that mountain lion. We stopped the truck, and I see the eyes glowing because it's about 7 p.m. It's just starting to get dark, and I get the binos out, and I got him like close up, big old pumpkin head, giant paws.
Was he staring at you?
Terrifying, staring at us. Well, just staring at the truck. You know? He knew that there was things inside the truck, I'm sure, moving, but enormous.
That's cool.
Enormous. Because I told you I'd seen one before, but it was small. The one
Yeah.
I'd seen before was like 60, 70 pounds, or like a dog sized. This thing was fucking giant.
That's great.
Giant. It was terrifying.
See, if you've had 2 sightings, that's a lot.
So that,
They're few and far between, man.
yeah, this was the first time I saw one clearly, like not moving, stationary, looking right at us. The whole encounter lasted 30 seconds. It was like a real view of one. Like a holy shit. It was so big, man.
That's good.
It had enormous forearms. That was the crazy. I was looking at its arms. It's standing there like big ass paws and this giant fucking head. Whew, all I was thinking is like if I wasn't in this truck, if I was out on the road, if I was out walking and I saw that thing from that close.
It scared the shit out
Oh
of you a
my
little
God. Oh my God. In Utah, you can get a tag for them over the counter, spot and stock for $50.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get a tag with hounds.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You gotta, it's draw. It takes a
Yeah,
while.
I think even the states that like Washington used to have a hound season, and they lost it to the animal rights activists. But they still maintain their regular hunting season.
Texas treats them like coyotes.
Yeah.
You just whack them.
There's a happy middle ground.
Yeah.
There's a happy. I think that I think the states that manage them as a big game animal are on the right track. You know.
Yeah, the states that don't do anything about them, like California, then you get a case like a couple weeks ago. A 5-year-old kid got bitten by a mountain lion in Calabasas. His mom had to punch the thing in the face, and the kid's in the hospital. The thing bit his fucking head.
Yeah, it was weird.
90-pound cat.
2 summers ago, well, you and I might have talked about this. 2 summers ago, Washington had its first mountain lion fatality in state history. In the same summer, Oregon had its first mountain lion fatality in like 98 years.
Yeah.
In the same summer.
And how were they managed up there?
Like I said, Washington used to have. They had a hound season, but you can still just get a tag. I was communicating with a guy who was developing a mountain lion hunting strategy that's pretty ingenious. He goes out the same way a hound hunter will go out when there's a fresh snow. He'll go out and drive logging roads, whatever, and cut a track. But instead of setting his dogs out on the track, he'll just start tracking the lion.
Just walking.
Yep. And every time he gets to like a good piece of bedding cover, like a grown-up clear cut or a canyon, he gets to a good piece of bedding cover, he stops and turns his predator caller on
Oh Jesus.
and calls. And he was writing us in saying how he's been trying it. I'm like, that's a pretty genius idea,
But
really.
explain to people what a predator caller
Oh,
is.
so you can a predator caller is a pretty broad term. It just you can do it a mouth blown predator call, which mimics the sound typically of a dying animal. So the most, if you just went into a sporting goods store and walked up to a shelf and bought a mouth blown predator call, it would probably mimic the sound of a dying rabbit. You can get like jackrabbit, cottontail rabbit, and it's just a horrific sound. It's like wee, 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 you know. Then they have electronic callers that have these massive libraries. So I have an electronic caller. I have a Lucky Duck electronic caller, and it's got a library of dozens and dozens of sounds. So it's like you can have it play woodpeckers in distress. I mean, anything
Really?
imaginable. Oh yeah, it's like house cat noises, which is attractive to urban coyotes. A vast library of sounds. So he would go and turn a predator caller on, and a lot of times, like fawn distress calls. It's just like loud, excitable noises that are attractive to predators. And eventually he wrote in that he said he sat down, turned his collar on, and I actually say turned his collar on. I don't know if he's using an electronic, like a battery powered collar or a mouth blown call, but either way, he said, within a minute, there's the lion, and you got him.
Did you see the guy who was trying to scare a mountain lion off? He's telling him, "Get the fuck out of here, fuck you." He's got a Glock pointed at it, and then he shoots it. You didn't see that?
No.
Oh,
Nor did I
gotta show
see
you.
something
This
that's
one's
floating
close.
around of a dude with a machete killing one off his dog.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that one.
Well,
But
we
the-
were going to publish it. We were going to publish it on our website because it hadn't been widely distributed.
Is it brutal?
I guess it's just too much. I never saw it. I was away. I just came back and heard that we had decided not to do it because it's just like, it's.
And you didn't immediately watch it?
I still haven't gotten around to watching it.
Your willpower is better than mine.
Yeah. So, so one of my colleagues, Spencer, he and I share an appreciation for those kind of sordid videos, and I got to ask him for it.
Watch this, because this is pretty crazy.
Oh,
Look at it. I mean,
Get back. You get back. Back.
he's practicing a lot of restraint.
yeah.
No.
Oh,
Motherfucker. I just had to shoot this mountain lion. He pounced at me and I popped it in the face. Holy shit.
That's wild.
Holy
I mean, that is close. What do you think that is? 10 yards?
my God.
If that?
it was close.
Oh my God.
Yeah. See,
Oh my God.
he'll report himself probably, and they'll do like an investigation,
Holy shit.
and he'll definitely.
Oh, he'll get
He'll-
off for sure.
he'll
I mean, look how close it.
he'll
Go
have-
back to that. Look
he'll
how
have-
close that is.
yeah, that's amazing,
That's
man.
not even 10 yards. I mean, that might be fucking 5 yards.
No, it's feet. Yanni
That's
had
a big one, too. Look how big that thing is.
See, I disagree.
You don't think that's 90 pounds, 100 pounds?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
It's not big. Like the one I saw was like $160.
Giannis had
But that's big
several of
enough
them
to
come
kill
into
you.
his turkey call this year. Ooh. Yeah, had a 3-pack come in.
Jesus.
A female, 2 of her kits came into the turkey call.
What did he do?
I don't know what he did. He didn't freak out. He kind of, I think he shooed him off or started talking to him.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Because he was calling to a turkey, and the lions were kind of coming from behind off to his right side, and he's not certain whether they were going to pass by his right shoulder on the way to the real turkey or if they were going to him. What else is funny that just happened to him this spring? He has this on video. He shoots a turkey. Well, he has the lions on video too. They're on his. He's got them on his Instagram, but he shoots a turkey, and all of a sudden, I mean, no sooner does that turkey get hit, that a coyote has it and is running away, trying to grab it,
Wow.
or shouldn't they run away? Trying to like wrestle the turkey.
So did you shoot the coyote?
No, but he's just standing there, and the coyote was because they'll come into the turkey sounds, so. Shoots the turkey, the coyote comes out, and then the coyote doesn't run off until he kind of goes at it to spook it. but it stayed right there, like while he shot the turkey.
They are so fucking bold, those things.
Yeah.
They're so clever, too.
They come in, one of my buddies, Seth, I think they called in 3 coyotes turkey hunting in one day this spring.
Wow.
I've had black bears, bobcats, black bear, a bobcat, many coyotes come in to turkey calls, but I have never had the lion thing, but I got a few friends that have done lions, and I feel that is like the greatest. That's a good achievement.
Were you the one who told me the story about turkey hunting where you heard something behind you and it was a bear? Was that you?
Yeah, I heard it exhale. I didn't know it was there until it exhaled in my ear.
How far away?
I mean,
inches.
Me to you.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I'm not joking, man. Like, exhaled in my ear. It was like he got there and couldn't figure out what was going on. I all of a sudden heard him go, and I turned and just, yeah.
Whoo, how big was he?
I don't know. I honestly didn't. It was so, like,
freaky,
disconcerting, and he was gone so fast. But, yeah, I wouldn't be able to say.
I think that all these people that vote against mountain lion hunting and have this perception of mountain lions need to be around one. They need to experience that just to understand that those things need to be managed or they will kill your kids. Like, you really need to see it.
I don't know that it's so seldom that they do.
No, it's not going to happen.
No.
Like, it's not a realistic adventure.
I just think, in my view, if they're well managed, in my view, they should just, they need to be managed as a renewable resource.
Right, but see that term,
renewable. What's with the shooting star?
This guy, it just came with the setup. When we bought these star panels, they have the option for a shooting star. We thought it'd be cool.
Oh yeah,
one shot over the but the look that people get when they're not sure what's going on.
You know, Twain was born the year of Halley's Comet and died when the Halley's Comet came back, and he predicted that he would die.
Whoa!
He came with the comet and left with the comet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Back to Mount.
That term, renewable resources, like that's a good term. Like you use that term as a hunter and as a conservationist, but most people, the problem is like the people that vote, right? Like a good example is British Columbia, right?
Yeah.
Because British Columbia bans grizzly hunting because they think grizzly hunting is trophy hunting. Meanwhile, they're like overrun with grizzlies. They have a lot of grizzlies, and they would manage them by controlling their population. It would keep people from getting attacked. It would keep livestock from getting attacked, and the encounters were frequent. Like my friend Mike lives up there, and he's like, there is no shortage of grizzly bears. Like they're all over the place up here. He goes, and now what they've done is they've stopped people from managing them because the people in the cities who never have any encounters with them whatsoever think that it's unsightly to hunt them.
Yeah.
But they allow black bear hunting. Because black bears seems to be something that people actually do eat. But then you can't gut them. Because if you gut them, they're worried that people are shooting them just for their gallbladders.
God, yeah.
So it's wild.
Yeah, for a long time you couldn't have a gallbladder in your possession.
Isn't that crazy?
You couldn't even use your own bear's gallbladder. But here's the problem that I see. Ducks don't kill people, generally. I'm sure someone somewhere. Oh, I was reading the other day. This state has more animal deaths, more by far and away. Texas has more people killed by animals than any other state.
Well, there's more tigers in captivity in Texas than in all the wild of the world.
It winds up being dogs.
Dogs kill people here?
Are the number one.
Really?
Yeah,
what
dogs.
kind of dogs?
Domestic, like feral dogs, domestic dogs.
Feral dogs?
Yeah, dogs kill. So, like Texas, there's like North Dakota and Rhode Island had like 0 animal deaths. Very low populations because one's small and because one's barely, it has a very low population density of humans, and one's just small enough to not have that many citizens. But yeah, Texas number 1, California's a distant second. Wild pigs, dogs, rattlesnakes. But here's the thing: ducks don't kill people. Generally. If you're going to go around and determine what we should be allowed to hunt based on what might kill you if we don't hunt it, I would be worried about the future of duck hunting.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that.
So I just am.
Yeah,
I'm more inclined to be like, if you have just in my desire to sort of bracket things, I would say if you have sustainable, harvestable populations of wildlife, and you have a public interest in exploiting that wildlife, and it can be exploited without long-term detriment to the species, that should be allowed.
That's very reasonable. But ducks are on menus in restaurants. Grizzly bears are not. The difference is people don't think of grizzly bears as something that you would eat. Ducks,
That's correct.
Ducks are at, Peking duck. It's a common dish.
Yeah.
And ducks are in a lot of restaurants.
No, I was very sad. I was very sad to see what happened in BC, and I think it's emotionally charged. I think you're seeing the same thing. You see routinely the same thing around wolves. I just this morning, someone shared an article. Montana just rewrote some of their wolf hunting rules and expanded some areas. And they used to have, outside of Yellowstone National Park, they had hunting districts that had these very strict quotas. They liberalized wolf hunting in Montana because we have a lot of wolves. And there's a pack of, in Yellowstone's Lamar Valley, there's a pack of 24 wolves. And 3 of those wolves this year have been killed outside the park. So now you can expect renewed calls for the park's jurisdiction to extend further away from the edges of the park in order to protect that, because people will routinely call them Yellowstone's wolves rather than Montana's wolves.
Yeah, that is an interesting situation, right? Because you have this park that everyone visits. And, I went there and I took a selfie with the elk that are hanging out in front of a Pepsi machine because it's so bizarre.
Did you get a bunch of social media backlash?
No, I didn't put it up.
Oh.
No, I just took the picture because I just thought it was so strange that we're all just standing there and there's elk just lying down on the ground.
Yeah, completely habituated to humans.
Yeah.
They've done a great job of restoring natural predators to the landscape, but they overlooked one, which is the human predator. So you had, 9,000 years at a minimum. This is just based on direct archaeological evidence. You have 9,000 years of human hunters on the landscape in Yellowstone National Park, the last 100 years notwithstanding. We've gone through great effort to restore natural predators to that ecosystem, but
Not humans.
not that one. Not that we don't have a very heavy hand in Yellowstone. Humans have an enormously heavy hand in Yellowstone. What I wanted to do when I retired, I used to want to campaign. This is not going to make a hell of a lot of sense to people, but I wanted to campaign to make hunters' orange laws standardized around the country. Not with a federal law, but just get all states
On board.
Yeah, because in some states you have to have 400 inches of blaze orange when you're hunting with a firearm. Some states it's like 500 inches of blaze orange. Some states it's no blaze orange. Wyoming, you got to have an orange hat. I was going to dedicate my life to making it be that all states adopted the Wyoming rule.
Only hat.
Orange hat.
You think that's enough?
Yeah, I do. If you want to wear more, wear more.
Is all orange, does that work if you have color blindness?
I have no idea.
It's interesting, right? I wonder what that means. I don't even know what they see.
But let me tell you what I'm going to do now when I retire.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'll get back
Are you
to
going to
orange.
retire? You're not going to retire.
No, but when I do retire,
You're not one
I'm
of them
going to
retired
campaign.
guys.
I'm going to campaign. I'm going to make it my life's work to have Yellowstone National Park turned into a wilderness area.
Really?
Yeah, all
You
the
think that's
infrastructure.
possible?
I'm going to fight hard. I need a slogan for it that's as catchy as "Make America Great Again."
But isn't the problem that those animals are so habituated? They're so used to humans that it's almost like it would take a long time. You remember when
It'd take about a year.
in
yeah.
1 year?
Yeah.
And then they figure it out?
Yeah, I don't want to mess up travel. So the highways that cut through there would stay open, but most of the infrastructure would go. Wildlife management would go to the states of Wyoming and Montana, and it would become a wilderness area. And then that's a great designation, because in a wilderness area, it would enjoy greater protections than it has as a national park.
How so?
Wilderness area, federally designated wilderness is non-motorized.
Oh, I see. But wouldn't that cut down on tourist dollars?
Oh, yeah. We'd have to figure something else out. Listen, weed's going legal in Montana.
Is it?
Yeah. So there's
that's
a bunch
where
of
all the money
there's a bunch of money. I'll figure that out. When I retire, I'll get all the details sorted out. But I just think it's time to restore the human predator.
When I first went
It's
up
time to do what's right on that landscape and protect it.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. So protect it from vehicles too, because that is an issue in that area, right?
Yeah, just quiet, just mellow things out, quiet things down, and restore the human predator. I just got to think of a sweet slogan.
It's such a massive place for tourist dollars. I mean, so many people visit Yellowstone every year just to look at the animals and occasionally get knocked through the air by a buffalo. Mm-hmm. Those bison videos where people get too close, those are fucking hilarious because they happen every year.
Yeah.
People go flying through the air and flip and land on their head.
To return to Hunter's Orange.
Yeah.
You had a question about Hunter's Orange, about being colorblind?
Yeah.
I don't know, but the whitetail hunter.
Oh, here it is. Can deer see an orange? Well, that's deer.
Yeah. Listen, here's the thing. God bless you, Jamie. But lots been written about what deer see. It's just speculation,
because their eyeballs function very different.
Yeah, it's just different. So what they see and how they respond to it. But interestingly, Mark Kenyon, who's a very avid whitetail hunter, he can't blood trail.
Because he can't see blood?
Yeah, because of colorblind issues.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. What if he has, what if he uses
I might be messing up. Maybe it's
light?
his dad. No, I think it is him that can't. Yeah, he's got to use various tricks or bring someone in, but he can't clearly pick up blood.
Huh.
And as in blood trailing for me, now that my eyeballs are going bad short range.
Do you use glasses?
Reading glasses.
But when you blood trail?
I hadn't thought of it.
Why not?
Because it gets my eyes get worse every day now. Not every day, but I mean it's noticeable.
Do you take
with this year blood trailing, I had a younger person with me, the flip flop flusher, Seth, and he was spotting 10 drops to my one, and I realized it's like I'm used to looking for blood up close too much. And I gotta back up or get my damn glasses on because it's getting harder to blood trail.
Have you taken any supplements for your eyes? There's lutein.
No, because it's only right now. No, I'm ready to do anything, man. It's only right now becoming a thing for me where it's starting to.
But we've been talking about it for a couple of years.
I know, but now
it's a real issue.
Listen, you see this?
Yeah. What's that? Oh, you got glasses in the back of your fucking case for your phone.
Yeah,
it's that bad.
Well,
let me see them glasses.
I hit a point where I couldn't order in a dark restaurant, and and my friend lent me those.
These are hilarious.
So I could order.
These are hilarious,
dude. Those are great. You look cool in those too.
Do it.
And I had to use his to order, and then I used his to order a set of those.
These look like you've had Vaseline on your fingers and you've just been trying to polish them.
I haven't cleaned them yet. Oh, yeah, but anyways, blood trailing's getting hard. Hunter's Orange, I think, is, I think it's a good idea. Some states don't require it at all. The state we're sitting in right now doesn't have a Hunter's Orange law.
Right. Did you hear about that? The guy who got shot, archery hunter, got shot by a muzzleloader hunter in Colorado this year?
This year?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that. I know it happens every year. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to wonder, how the fuck does a person think a person is an animal? I mean, how does that ever happen?
Not only that, he thought he was an animal, and he thought he was aiming at its lungs.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think the archery hunter was in full camo, and this guy,
My friend Robert Abernathy got shot turkey hunting.
Really?
Yeah. I know a handful of people that all been shot turkey hunting. I know one guy's been shot turkey hunting twice. In the same,
Jesus Christ!
In the same spot.
Did he have was he using some fan in front of him or something like that?
He was doing something that's pretty taboo, which is he was mimicking the sound of a gobbler. He was mimicking. So when you're hunting turkeys in the spring, you have to kill males,
right?
And you usually make a sound of a female to draw a male in. Well, you can really. It can be effective to mimic the sound of a male.
It's like a challenge.
A challenge, right? So you'll appreciate like cow calling at an elk, but a little bugling at an elk can get his blood boiling. He had pulled all out of the stops and started mimicking the sound of a male and got shot. Then he's hunting the same spot years later, mimics the sound of a male, gets shot by a different guy.
Jesus Christ.
And very different attitudes of these two different people. The one guy that shot him wanted to fight with him and blame it on him. The other guy that shot him felt so bad that he quit hunting, and he had to befriend him and make him comfortable to go hunting again. So one person took an adversarial approach to the man he shot, and one person was deeply repentant to the point where he gave up the discipline.
I was watching a video yesterday of a woman who rear-ended this guy in a Lamborghini and then got out and started screaming and yelling at him that he hit her car, and the guy was laughing. Did you see that video? They show the video from the gas station. The guy's like, what the fuck are you talking? And then she gets mad at him for being white. But she's white. Isn't she white? Kind of white? I don't know. She looked white. But I mean, it's like a literal crazy person. Like maybe just trying to make up an excuse for why she was in a car accident. But she clearly takes a turn, slams into this guy's car. The guy pulls over into the gas station. She gets out and knocks on his door. You hit my fucking car, and screaming and yelling at him. People are nuts. Like, if you shoot a person, you should definitely fucking apologize because you didn't even look. I mean, did you think that guy was a turkey?
The guy that got shot twice, his name's Preston Pittman.
What was the story with the first one?
So that was a good friend of mine, Robert. And
Who shot him?
No. Oh, the guy that got shot twice?
Yeah. Who shot him the first time they wanted to fight him?
I don't know a lot of details about the guy that wanted to fight.
But that's a crazy person,
Yeah,
right?
the guy shot him and then got mad at him for making a gobble.
But he didn't even look.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy.
Saw movement. Listen, man,
how bad did he get shot? 20 gauge?
I can't remember, but yeah, he got bad. Penetrated his skin. He got bad, like in his skin. My friend Robert that got shot, he was saying to me, we were talking about what size shot, like what size shotgun pellets you use to hunt turkeys. Robert Abernathy was saying to me how he's like, man, I can't remember what size it was. There's like a large pellet, maybe 2s or something, and he said you shouldn't be able to use those. Those things hurt. I'm like, what do you mean those things hurt? He goes, that's what I got shot with. He was hunting, and he was sitting there listening for a gobbler, and there was a stump in front of him. And he said that he lifted his foot up and put his foot on the stump. And all of a sudden, bam!
Someone shoot him in the foot?
Yeah. In conversation with the man that shot his leg, the man said to him, when you lifted your foot up on that stump, it looked like a gobbler going into full strut.
Oh my God, that guy's blinder than you.
No, listen, man, I'm only blind up close. It's just, yeah, so.
God, it's just so crazy that people just pull the trigger on a movement.
Yeah. I can't, listen, I definitely can't,
Can't condone it, but you kind of get it.
I don't condone it. I don't condone it. When I hear something like that, though, to be honest with you, I have twin feelings. One of condemnation of the individual, and one of like some level of, like a level of sympathy.
Didn't one of your friends get shot through the backpack by a rifle hunter?
Yeah.
What happened there?
He was deer hunting in Washington. Got shot through his backpack. That guy got in trouble. The guy that shot him through his backpack got in trouble.
He fucking should. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I probably told you my dad got shot in the foot. Not on it. He just got shot in the foot rabbit hunting.
But that was an accident, right?
That wasn't a mistaken identity. That was just a guy thumbing with the
hammer
on his shotgun and shot him in the foot. Yeah. You know what you and I were talking about, but you said you want to talk about it now?
Yeah.
Is the COVID in deer.
Yeah, the deer are testing positive for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really understand why, right? Isn't that correct?
No, and they've done hundreds of deer in multiple states. I think it was Michigan had the highest, like 68% of the deer they checked, and they checked over 100 of them.
Isn't that incredible? Because that's more than any population of humans.
Yeah.
Like at any point in time, what's the population of humans that test positive for COVID? I mean, it can't be
just
more
they're
than a few
testing. They're positive for the antibodies.
No, I mean, positive for the antibodies.
Yeah.
Oh, but not positive for COVID.
Not positive, and they don't know that it has any. they don't know that it has any effect on them. So when I first heard that, a wildlife biologist in Arizona named James Heffelfinger sent me some information about that. When I first heard it, I was like, yeah, man, but maybe it's something that was always there, but you weren't looking for it, or there's a false marker. And he wrote back with a bunch of information on it, and they had all these serums that they've banked from over the years.
Serums meaning like blood samples?
Yeah. They have banked blood samples from deer, probably just for this sort of thing, right?
Right.
And when they go back pre-COVID and look at all these deer samples, it's not there.
Wow.
And now it's there.
That's so fascinating.
We're laughing that it all comes. I was joking that it's either like a really good hunter who gets very close to deer. That's one theory. Probably not right. I had a theory that it comes from Doug Dern's urine.
Did he have COVID?
Buckman juice. I don't think he's had it, but I know that his urine is very attractive to deer.
But he hasn't had COVID, so that doesn't work.
Yeah, and I thought maybe it came from Doug.
My whole family got
he
COVID.
lives in he's like a deer man. He's around deer all the time. But I don't get it. I have no way of knowing. Another thing I could picture. I don't know that this is true. If I was in charge of examining this, a thing that I would be curious to look at would be captive cervids, which are in very close proximity to people.
Which is also how they spread CWD.
Yeah, CWD can be spread that way. They just had another deer farm that had shipped, 100 and some CWD positive deer around the country. You could see that would be a case where you had captive deer in very close proximity to humans, and then those deer are rubbing noses through the fence with wild deer. Like, that would be a thing I would look at. I have no idea.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or just, I don't know, man, you walk out to you're in the suburbs somewhere where you got deer hanging out in your yard, like deer hang out in my yard.
Yeah.
And you walk out to your car in the morning and sneeze and some freaking deer walks by. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's highly unlikely
It sure
because
seems like it.
Outside contamination of people getting COVID outside is almost unheard of.
Yeah. And it shows up in like zoo animals, close proximity to humans. It shows up in like fur farms, like all the mink they had to destroy in Norway, close proximity to humans.
I heard tigers, like in the zoo, they've caught tigers in the zoo. My whole family got COVID, and I was curious to see how my dog would react, like whether he would get it. Because, I didn't like shy away from him. Like a lot of times I watch TV and he like on the couch, he likes to hop up on the couch and cuddle. Mm-hmm. So like while I was home all day sick with COVID, he just hopped up with me and hung out with me. So I'm like, should I be fucking petting him like this? Like,
oh yeah.
I'm like, he seems all right.
We had that argument where when I had COVID, I was out in our guest house quarantining. I was gone when I got it and got home, and before I went in to see my family, I just went to this. We have a little guest house. I went out there and eventually got my test back and had COVID, and I let the dog in.
Oh, and then into the house too.
Then we had to like do all the. My wife's like, I don't know what happens now. Like, is the dog supposed to quarantine?
I think the dog should quarantine. Probably.
We didn't quarantine the dog.
I was the last one in my family to get it, so I wasn't worried about them getting it because they already had antibodies.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what about the dog? But I'm like, I think he's probably already had it. I don't want to test him because I don't want to put him through a blood test.
Yeah. No, it's funny about dogs. The weirdest thing about quarantining with it. At first, man, my kids were upset. They're crying, like very confused.
Oh, because you can't come in the house?
Oh, yeah. I'm out in the garage. And I'm like, no.
Oh, wow.
Because then, if you come up to me, then you're not supposed to go to school. And like, I'm going to go out in there. And they're like upset. And they're making artwork for me and bringing me food. And after a few days, they're just like, the fuck's that guy?
They got used to it.
It was like I ceased to exist after a few days.
Wow. Kids adapt. That's funny. That's funny.
Oh yeah, man! It was like they forgot all about me. And I was out there, taking naps and stuff like that.
It is interesting about the zoo animals because the zoo animals may be close proximity, but all of it outside, and then also no real like physical contact with zoo animals. So that's
what are you talking about? No physical contact with zoo animals,
like tigers.
Oh,
I read that tigers had gotten it. Like big cat. See if you can find that. I'm pretty sure that's what I read. That these tigers have gotten in the zoo, unless
but
maybe
if you're
they had to
talking about
handle the tiger.
If you're talking about 15, if the new, not the new, there's this sort of like weird rule of thumb that the rule of thumb, like 15 minutes, 6 feet.
Yeah, it's nonsense. 9 lions and tigers at the National Zoo are being treated for COVID.
So through the fence or cage
Wow,
or
that's
whatever.
a couple weeks ago.
Of course they're spending that amount of time. You know what? At my kids' school, you know what they do that's really interesting? You know the whole like 15 minutes, 6 feet thing? Mm-hmm. They limit my older boy, they limit his lunchtime to 15 minutes.
Oh, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Because then they're like, no one's gonna. How could they?
But that's with the Delta variant, which is the predominant variant now. That's not real because now it's like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
he
likes to shoot the breeze with his buddies too, so it's hard for him to get his lunch eaten.
That's silly. Remember when we were kids, you had chicken pox. You'd go over your friend's house so you could get chicken pox. Like if he had chicken pox, everybody would go and get chicken pox. Let's get it over with. Now we're scared of something that doesn't even harm kids. Zookeepers first noticed last week that the animals were displaying symptoms including decreased energy and appetite and coughing and sneezing. The animals are now being treated with anti-inflammatories, anti-nausea medication, and antibiotics, the latter of which is intended to address a likely secondary bacterial pneumonia.
God, I didn't even do any of that stuff.
No, that's pretty crazy, though, that it's...
Presumptive positive?
Oh, interesting.
Oh, God.
Interesting.
Tested presumptive? So they didn't have an actual, maybe they don't have an actual animal COVID test or something? I don't know what that means.
That's a good point. Good catch, Jamie.
You know, when the pandemic started, when shit really hit the fan, I was in Baja with my family. And I got back and I called my friend Chester Floyd. And I said, this is the most prophetic thing anybody said about COVID to me. I said, Chester, man, what do you think about all this that's going on? And Chester said, man, I think a lot of people got a lot of opinions. And holy shit,
was he right?
Dude, he was on to something.
Oh my God. I wonder how much, like, if you could get a gauge of the overall anxiety of the world, how much it decreased yesterday when Facebook was down. If there was like a, you know how you go by those trails and it has like, here's your fire warning for the day.
Yeah.
It has like all these different colors. If there was like an anxiety meter and you could go by and see like, what was it like with no Facebook? I bet that, and Instagram both, I bet that shit would be pretty light. Yeah. Twitter's still up, which is probably like 50% of the anxiety is Twitter, but 50% of it might be Facebook.
It might, yeah. It's probably good. And it's funny that
all social media anxiety.
I use social media as a I use it for work and have fun with it, but yeah, it blows my mind that for a long time it would be that you were supposed to regard those individuals responsible for social media platforms. We were supposed to regard them as these heroes. It was like, oh, the Arab Spring, what I mean?
Right.
And it was like, bringing the world, together.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, dude.
Well, the algorithms. What changed is algorithms. If you watch the Social Dilemma, the documentary, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, Tristan Harris, has been on the podcast and sort of explained a lot of it to us. And, he's going to come back on again. We're going to talk to him some more about it because it's very disturbing because what they've done with these algorithms, and they knew what was happening while they were doing it, is they've accentuated arguments. They've accentuated all the division between people, and that it's kind of like an unstoppable domino effect. And it seems like at this point in time, there's a clear division in our country that didn't exist in 2007. If you go back to the invention of the first iPhone and when social media started coming about, like if you go from there to now, the change is palpable. Like it's very, very real. And then when you add in the anxiety of a pandemic and real adversity, which is what people have encountered over the last 18 months, now it's through the roof. Now people are like literally fucking insane. It's like they're unrecognizable.
I hear that, but I know YouTube's not a social media platform, but I had a rare moment of just nothing going on this morning because I woke up in a hotel and I wasn't like at work or messing with my kids. And so I was just dicking around on YouTube. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised to be like that YouTube understands that I like to watch Norm Macdonald videos and I like to watch stuff about catching bobcats.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like they really,
their algorithm.
yeah, they weren't trying to serve me something that's going to make me mad.
But see, that's because you're healthy. See, this is the thing about it. Like, people think that they do it because they want to make you mad. It's not. They do whatever you're interested in. Like my friend Ari, he did this experiment. We went on YouTube and only looked at puppy videos. And all it would show him is videos of puppies. Like, every time he went on YouTube, it's puppies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you get into the comments, that's when you find out that YouTube is a social media platform.
Yeah.
Because, well, also not just that, but creeps have used comments. Like, they've gone to certain websites, and this is like how they've caught people for like sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And there was a bunch of these weird fucking kid videos. I don't know if you know aware of these. They don't understand what was going on. They don't know how these things were made or why they were made. But there was a bunch of kid-friendly looking videos. So it'd be like Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse, but then they would get drunk and like fall down and bust their head open. And it was really weird. But these videos would show up in, like, if a kid was looking at cartoons, and if you're one of those parents that just like gives your kid an iPad and just go ahead, your kid would watch normal cartoon videos, and then all of a sudden in the feed, because of the algorithm, these it was like Spider-Man was a bunch of them.
Here's a, for instance, screenshot.
Jeez.
This was like Elsa Gate stuff.
Oh yeah,
I'm not showing this online. It's just for you guys to see. But.
Yeah, Elsa Gate was one where Elsa from Frozen, there was a ton of these videos where kids were looking up Elsa videos. So because they were looking up Elsa videos, all these other videos that were also Elsa videos showed up in them. And apparently what was going on is, like, inside the comments, am I wrong about this? Inside the comments, there was like people who got arrested for doing...
Yeah, that's where I don't know. I'm not going to say that didn't happen. I don't know. Yeah, there are FBI investigation. Yeah, they got crossed over into like the pedophile
so
genre.
pedos,
they were using code words and stuff.
Yeah, they were using these comments, like they would meet up on certain videos and they would communicate inside the comments of those videos with code. And that's how they got away with communicating publicly about certain things. And I don't know if they were child porn or what they were involved with, but I remember there was a lot of people that got in trouble for that. And then YouTube's trying to figure out, like, what are these videos and who the fuck is making these?
Yeah.
Because there was...
What's the motivation?
They don't know. Like, the theme was weird. Like, we watched a bunch of them one day. The theme was weird. Like, it was always the same thing. Like, they seemed kind of normal, and then the cartoon characters would get drunk, and they would always, like, wind up getting busted in the head with a bottle and blood everywhere, and you're like, what the fuck? So it goes from being like, yeah, weird shit.
You don't let your
man.
kid just cut loose on YouTube, do you?
No. Luckily, one of my kids, all she likes to watch on YouTube is, like, there's a girl named Sniper Wolf who's very funny, and she does like these reaction videos to stuff, but it's very G-rated, and she loves watching her. And there's but I keep an eye on what they're doing, and I don't allow them to just start going crazy.
Yeah,
because it's just you never know. I mean, one day you just stumble upon an ISIS beheading video.
Yeah,
and now you have your kids fucking waking you up in the middle of the night crying and screaming because they can't get this image out of their head.
It's terrifying.
It is.
To be on the other side of it, too, because when you're young, all you want to do is throw off the chains.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're, like, in the position of putting the chains on.
Yeah, you gotta, it's like, how much freedom do you give them? Like, how much do you talk to them about stuff? How much do you let them figure the stuff out on their own? It's tricky, and it's a weird world because it didn't exist previous. Like, it's not like we're dealing with something that we went through when we were children. Mm-hmm. There was no Google when we were children. There was no, Live Leak. You ever go on Live Leak? And
no.
Fucking
I know about it, but yeah.
Horrible videos. You can watch a lot of car accidents and animal attacks and just wild shit.
Yeah.
That's not,
Oh, no, I have been on that. I have stumbled into that.
But that didn't exist before. When I was a kid, if you wanted to watch something fucked up, you had a plan for it. Like when we wanted to watch Faces of Death, somebody had to get the video. One of our friends had to watch the door. So like we were in the basement. One of the friends had to watch the door, make sure the parents didn't come down, and then we put it on the VCR, and we were ready. Like if someone came down, you'd pop that fucking tape out and hide it. These kids today, all they have to do is just have a phone, and a lot of times kids are 11 and 12, they have phones. And 12-year-olds with a phone, I mean, they're going to start Googling people fucking, people getting killed. They're going to see the most crazy shit. Have you seen this? Your friend's going to say, have you seen that? And then you're going to look on your phone. There's no way to stop it. There's no way to stop it. Kids have wild fucking workarounds for like little restrictions. My sneaky little fucking kid, you know what she did? She screen recorded my wife when my wife went and put in a password for her screen time. Yeah.
Nice move.
Very nice move. She handed her phone over to my wife. My wife goes in and puts a password in for her screen time so she can only get an hour's worth of screen time a day. And then my wife checks it. She's like, how the fuck you have 4 hours of screen time? Like, what's going on here? So then she figured out that the little monster. Yeah.
Did you guys have public access
man.
when you were growing
Smart.
up? Like public access TV. I used to see some of
I
this
remember
shit.
that.
That's my first exposure to Faces of Death was after 10 o'clock. They could show whatever the fuck they wanted for whatever reason.
Really?
Not blatant porn, but porn.
Really?
I saw, that's what the Bud Dwyer video of him shooting himself in the face.
You saw that on TV?
To the 21 gun salute when I was going to bed when I was like 10 years old.
What?
Yeah.
Huh.
No
Like,
way.
Wow. And then this guy ended up, I was talking with some of my friends when I was back at home in my reunion. This guy we all knew about him when we were like 12, 13 years old. Had a show, painted up like an insane clown posse type character, and would have like blood, girls, vaginas, lips, all sorts of wild shit.
Really?
Wild. And it was just like the government was putting it on technically because of public access.
So in public access, there's no restrictions like there are
That's
with the
what I was
FCC?
asking. I did not. You guys didn't have. That's like what Wayne's World was. That's my only thing I knew growing up was like Wayne's World on the SNL was a public access show, but then we actually had public access, and that's where wild shit was happening after 10 o'clock.
I had a friend of mine who had a public access show. My friend Larry Rapucci, who's a stand-up comic in, I think it was Larry's show, but he was a stand-up comic in Boston. We all did a public access show when we were like struggling comedians. We all went on
You did
this,
it too?
Yeah, I wore a dress. I wore a dress and a wig, and I was like, we had like a dating show, and
This is the wild guy that I would. This is from the 90s, I think. I found it on YouTube. It still exists.
It's like very David Lynchian,
Dude,
man.
So it's just so weird to watch.
Damon
now, seeing it.
Zex.
Yeah.
Oh, so he would. That's him
He's
on the
a
right
character.
and him on TV. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. So
yeah.
he really planned this out.
This was some weird shit.
Wow.
Again,
This is 96.
he's doing coke. The tampons. It's also like again. I was a kid when I was seeing this stuff.
Wow.
So like to me,
Where's
it's not
that
that
guy
Looks
strange.
like Robert Smith from The Cure, man.
Someone found him. I don't know. I'm sure he's like on Facebook or probably doing this stuff still.
Let's find him.
Well, he's gonna find out now.
Oh,
I'm sure.
Jesus Christ.
Wow, yeah.
So he
Hardcore.
got away with this. This was all on.
Yeah, but he wasn't even the only one. There was a clown called like Angsto the Clown that was like, I'm sure Red Band knows about this stuff because he was a little bit older than me in the same area. That's probably why he was probably watching the same
Where
shit.
were
to
you
be honest
brought
with
up?
you. This is why it might
Ohio.
make sense now.
Where were
Yeah,
you brought
in
up?
Columbus, Ohio. Huh. Weird.
Wow.
There's, I mean, this, and then looking back into some of the stuff that was happening there, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. But if this wasn't going on everywhere, that's sort of like strange to me.
I never
kinda
saw
thought
it in Boston, but I might have been out of the loop. It might have existed. I just wasn't aware of it. But I thought the regulations were across the board if you were broadcasting. I didn't think that public access was different. Is it because it's local?
Maybe, and then there's like free speech laws that we're getting into. I don't. Again, I was a kid, so I have no idea. I was just. I was excited to see it.
I haven't. It's not. It won't be available till spring, but for the last couple of years, I've been working on a book. You know, like this is the thing I thought I'd never do. I used to be annoyed by people who thought about their kids before I had kids, but I have a book that I just finished called "Outdoor Kids Inside World," and it's about kids in nature, raising kids. And yeah, man, if you'd asked me, dude, like 10 years ago, I'd have been like, no way I would do something like that. But it's just harrowing, man. It's like scary.
What is scary?
Having kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, worried about them and
Just like
the
what,
danger.
and like trying to guide their experience, And for me, I don't know, I've found that exposure to nature, experiences in nature, understanding nature is like winds up being an avenue of approach that I have with them that works for both of us. It's like a common language,
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's terrifying. And then the feeling of the hypocrisy that you get of things that meant that when you were young, things that meant a lot to you and felt very authentic to you, like freedom to consume what media you wanted, freedom to talk to who you wanted to talk to, freedom to go where you wanted to go. That later you're in a position where you're denying someone something that you really wanted in an honest way when you were young.
Yeah. I had a conversation with Jonathan.
It's a push and pull, man.
Jonathan Haidt about that. He talks about the concept of free-range kids. Mm-hmm. About he lets his children wander. It was Jonathan Haidt, right? Right? The coddling of the American mind. Mm-hmm. He lets his kids wander around New York City. Like he lets his kids walk home from New York City. Yeah. And, he's talking about one time his kid got a little lost and they were really, really scared. It was like they were trying to find him, and it's like a terrifying feeling. But that ultimately the development that the child receives from being able to navigate the world on their own is very valuable, but there's a risk. And so you have to weigh this risk versus reward. And the opposite of that is people do helicopter parent, and we know how that turns out, right? That's not good when you overly coddle your kid, and your kid is not exposed to any sort of adversity or any sort of danger or any sort of adventure or any sort of independence, that it can be stifling. And then it takes a long time for the child to develop outside of that parental environment. Once they become free, there's different kinds of kids, right? There's kids that grow up in bad neighborhoods with very little parental guidance, and they're 18. And then there's kids who grow up completely coddled and completely protected and insulated, and they're 18. And then they run into each other. Totally different life experiences.
Yeah.
And I was the former. I was the kid that didn't have a lot of guidance when I was a kid, and I was a kind of a latchkey kid.
I'm glad you just used that word.
Yeah, it's a common word, right? Common phrase.
Well, apparently it's not.
No?
I grew up with that word.
Yeah, latchkey.
I was commenting on how my wife in her early years was a latchkey kid, and she's like, I haven't heard that word in a long time. I'm like, that used to be a word, dude, like latchkey kid.
Yeah, you got a key. And you came home and no one was home.
Yeah.
When I was
That's
12
great.
years old.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like 5 days ago someone was pointing out to me that word doesn't get used anymore.
Yeah. Well, kids don't. I mean, it's kind of a different thing. You don't really see 12-year-old kids walking home with a key and opening up their front door anymore. Yeah. I mean, I think about my children and how young they are, and I can't imagine them doing that. But I did that, and I think that the independence that comes from being a kid who walks home from school by yourself and opens your door by yourself, and and then my parents didn't come home till whatever it was. They worked till 5, and then they were home. I was out. I would go places. No one knew where the fuck I was. There was no phones. There was no cell phones.
Yeah.
I could leave a little Post-it note or something like that.
It's been interesting to watch as a parent the way that different parents find what dangerous things they're comfortable with. Friends of mine, like my friend Kelly lives in New York, right? And she'll talk about, and we have similar mindsets about exposing kids to risk. And her kids will take the subway, right, or whatever, home. And to me, where I live, and having not had kids that age in a city, like I can't picture what she's getting at. You know what I mean? I go like, wow, that seems just kind of like
crazy.
Yeah. Like,
how old are the kids?
Irresponsible. I'm trying to think how 14 and 9 or 10, somewhere in there. And I don't know, they've been at it for a while. But either way, like things that some people would regard, things that people from the outside would regard as like hard to picture. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I expose my kids to like danger that I have decided is like an okay danger to court. I'll expose them to being, they can be around grizzly bears. They can be unescorted in areas that have a lot of mountain lions and bears. We take small boats out into very big water. We do all kinds of things, but it's like things that I've decided are good risk, healthy risk.
Have you been around a grizzly with your kid?
Yeah. My boy I have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where at?
In Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a lot of very up close exposure to black bears. Very up close.
Yeah, and living on
And,
Montana.
and then I see that, like at our fish shack in Alaska, it's like a daily occurrence. But I see that, and I'm thinking, man, I love being able to expose my kids to like this, and to have them be not jumpy people, you know. But then then I see that I hear that they were at their friends on YouTube, like unfettered YouTube access, and I'm like, oh my god.
Right, they're gonna believe in QAnon.
You know, yeah. It's just like we all find our ways to be, you know, we all find our ways to like try to find some way to be comfortable and try to find some way to not be overdoing something or underdoing something.
Well, I think kids for sure need some form of adversity to work through, and I think sports are really great for that for kids. You need to learn how to lose.
But man, I know some stunted people that played a lot of sports.
Yeah, it's not it's not a 100% guarantee. But it is a guarantee that if you've never encountered any loss at all, you're fucked.
Any challenge.
Yeah, no challenge at all, no adversity at all, you know, and then dependent upon the kind of parenting that you received. I mean, it's not that it is a deal breaker. Like you have to have sports in your life or you'd have to be good at things. I think you have to have difficult things that you're attempting to do. You know, I think that's really beneficial for kids and for adults. I mean, I think that's a key part of my life is lessons learned through adversity, and trying new things is a very important part of that because it forces you to really be a beginner. One of the things I found, like in martial arts, like when you would get like guys who are like world champion kickboxers and they start entering into MMA, they're really good at one aspect of fighting, which is like kickboxing. And then they would have to learn wrestling and jiu-jitsu. They didn't like it because the wrestling and jiu-jitsu, the problem was they were getting fucked up a lot. They were losing. So they're used to being like dominant, and then all of a sudden they're losing.
Or they've been for years good at something.
Exactly.
Now they suck at some part of it.
Exactly. So they would avoid that aspect of it. So their development as a mixed martial artist was always limited. They always get to a certain level and they could never pass that because they never really developed the skills required to excel in the overall thing. There was always like this hole in their game.
They'd never go live in that.
Yeah.
They'd never allow themselves to go live in that loser space, right?
Yeah, but that's
to excel.
That's where all the lessons are. That the bad feelings, where all the lessons are. It's like someone who's never experienced heartache, right? And then they experience and like, oh, it's like death. It's like you lose a part of your life. And you know, I remember the first time I got my heart broken when I was like, I guess I was like 17 or 18. I couldn't believe how bad I felt. I was like, God, this is the worst feeling ever.
Do you ever go look her up on Facebook or anything?
No. Oh. But if I did, I don't know. But you know, I'm sure I'd be over it. But the point is, like, you have to experience that to know. And then I think, like, how am I going to live without this girl in my life? And then, you know, years later, I'm like, how would I have lived if I kept that girl in my life? Yeah. Like, oh my God, it would have been horrendous.
I have such a hard time picturing you being heartbroken.
Oh, I was heartbroken. Yeah, when I was 18. Yeah.
I know this isn't a parenting show, but a friend of mine, he's an attorney.
Show.
A friend of mine who's an attorney, and he deals a lot with like what do you call it? Custody, child custody stuff. Mm-hmm. We were talking about all these like, you know, theories about what kids need and how to do it. And he said, man, I only know one thing that really fucks up kids. He says is when they know that no one gives a shit about them.
Ooh,
He's that's the thing that's in my view, that's what does it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's the hardest when you see foster kids, you know, that are that don't have love, they don't have a family, they don't have real parents, or maybe even worse, they know their parents are out there, but their parents don't give a fuck about them, and then someone else is raising them.
Oh, it's damaging.
Oh, it's so devastating, and it's like, how do you fix that ever? Like, how do you? I think once a child has gone through a really bad emotional development and childhood development, it's like so difficult to somehow or another get out of that space and become like a normal person, become a person who's balanced and who just gets their shit together. It's so fucking hard. I mean, you can't imagine the emotional pain that some of these children go through. It's so fucking devastating. And we do this thing. We get Christmas gifts for these foster kids, And the thing about it is, though, you get like this sheet of paper where you get like a rundown of these kids and their life, and you're like, oh, fucking Christ. It's
Well,
so
then you make
hard.
a selection of gifts.
Yeah.
That's
but
nice that you do that.
It's nice, but it's so hard because you want to just adopt them all. You want to just go, and my wife's not having that. But I mean, like, I'm that way with dogs. Like, I can't go to the pound. If I go to the pound, I'll have 100 dogs. I can't. I'm that guy. I fucking love dogs. I wouldn't be able to go home.
I like that you call it the pound. I still call it the pound. But
Isn't it still the pound?
no one knows. Like latchkey kids, there's a whole generation of people that don't use that word.
That's it. No, it's the dog pound, man. That's what Snoop Dogg calls it. It's I don't know, man. It's not fair. Life's not fair. That's an important lesson too. Like, people want fair in this world. That's not a real thing. There's not fair in looks. There's not fair in intelligence. There's not fair in the way you were raised. And sometimes not fair is beneficial, because sometimes when you get a shitty hand of cards, you develop adversity and determination that a person who's been coddled doesn't have, and that allows you to excel wildly beyond anything that they're capable of, which is a hard thing for me as a parent, because all of my favorite friends are fucked up. Like, they all had fucked up childhoods, and it made for the most interesting people. But, they have horrific. Like, my friend Joey Diaz, one of my favorite people that's ever lived, found his mom dead on the floor of the kitchen when he was 13, high on acid. Yeah. I don't want that to happen to my kid. No one wants that to happen to their kid. But that was his existence.
That's who you gravitate toward.
Always gravitate.
I gravitate toward people who had like pretty scrappy upbringing.
Yeah, they're more fun.
Reliable.
Yes. Yeah, reliable. Also, they have a thing that you like to use, a term. They have a lot of grr.
Yeah. But I bet you'd look and you'd find that they were deeply loved, but scrappy.
Yes. And well, Joey's a perfect example of that, because he's a deeply loving person. He's like, if you're in his inner circle, you're loved. Like, he calls you, he tells you he loves you. He's very affectionate, very loving, because it's valuable to him.
Yeah.
He knows what it means to not be there, to not have someone there for you. Yeah. It's a tricky thing, man. It's like with all things in life, there's a balance that can be achieved, but sometimes through imbalance, you develop spectacular abilities. Like some of the greatest fighters, like Mike Tyson is a great example, right? Literally didn't experience any love in his life until he was like 13 years old, and he was adopted by this guy, Cus D'Amato, who just happened to be one of the great boxing trainers in history. And through this guy's mentoring, and also through hypnosis, the guy hypnotized him to be this like assassin inside the ring. Like, he got his love through destroying people. And obviously that worked out really well. I mean, you don't have a Mike Tyson. You don't make a Mike Tyson if birthdays are all, on time, and everyone's buying you a nice Christmas gift, and you never run into bullies at school, and you don't get a Mike Tyson. But everybody worshipped Mike Tyson. Like, when we were kids and Mike Tyson fought, Jesus, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, when I was in my early 20s, when Mike Tyson was in his prime, holy shit, was that a big deal. When you watch a Tyson fight, I mean, everybody knew when Tyson was fighting. It was like you were going to see a public execution.
Yeah.
You don't create a person like that unless things go badly.
My kids have to pack their own lunches and their own snacks, so they be self-sufficient. And every morning, my wife basically makes them disassemble it in her presence so she can check.
Oh, that's funny. What do they try to smuggle in?
No, it's just like you're talking about, being like, I don't know, just, that's how you make a Mike Tyson. Like, I don't know if we're gonna wind up with any Mike Tysons.
I don't know if you want to be. You don't really want to raise a Mike Tyson, really. Not that Mike's a bad guy; he's a great guy, but he's a great guy because he figured his way through all that shit and became this guy. But that's
Yeah, there are definitely celebrated individuals who adversity now and then creates these like spectacular
Yeah.
people.
Could also
I
break
think,
them though.
Yeah, and I think that to go into it planning on, if you went into it thinking you were going to manipulate that system to produce a spectacular child, it would be like ripe for backfiring.
It's Johnny Cash, a boy named Sue.
Oh yeah, there's a whole damn song about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I knew I wasn't going to be around, so I named you Sue.
That's right. I'm trying to get all like, Johnny Cash already thought all that.
Yeah, he figured it out. I mean, it's a fucking hilarious song, but it's very tricky. It's very difficult. But I think your friend that pointed out that the worst thing that can happen is a kid that doesn't feel loved. That's true. I think that's probably where a lot of psychopaths come from. Unfortunately, people, that's old expression: hurt people hurt people.
Hmm.
Hadn't
heard that.
You never heard that one?
No.
Really? Hurt people hurt people?
No.
That's pretty common. That's more common than latchkey kid, I thought. What is it like raising kids in Montana? I mean, you're in this. It's really cool because you're in this like super rural environment. A lot. You're in this area where you're in a nice town, but you're also surrounded by this like gorgeous landscape of mountains and wildlife.
Yeah,
it's a pretty fucking cool place.
No, I think it works well. Having that level of immediacy to be able to take them out to experience things that like we care about,
Yeah.
Like we did a family walk on Sunday and we went and caught grasshoppers, so we could throw them in the creek and
watch fish get them.
Watch fish get them,
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and fish a lot and hunt mushrooms, and we camp a lot in the summer. I like it, man. I'm gone a lot for work, so I try to have it. I travel a lot, so I try to have when I'm home, I try to have it be very try to keep it impactful.
That's cool.
And try not to be lazy.
Yeah.
And I'm not lazy, but I make sure to not be lazy, and I make sure to really that we're just out doing stuff.
Right. And make that a thing for them so they get accustomed to it.
Yeah. Like there's always a plan. Always going, doing something, always a plan. I mean, it can be relentless for people around, and I've had people lobby complaints about that system of living, but that's how I like to run the program.
Well, for what you do, and for the company MeatEater and for First Light, like there's no better place for you to live. I mean, Montana's just an amazing place.
Yeah,
live
I enjoy it.
Run a company like your company, that makes Netflix shows and videos and writes books, and it's like it couldn't be better.
Yeah, it's and then we have a very good network of folks there. Yeah, it's great, man. And then Bozeman, where I live, it's big. It's big. It's bigger than where I grew up, right? But
how many people is Bozeman? Like 300,000, 400,000?
No, it's not. I mean, because there's like the town, and there's the sort of like Greater Valley area. I don't know where it's at. Jamie, find
what'd
out.
You guess?
Lickety split for like in the town, 70 or something like that.
70,000.
Yeah, maybe I'm way off.
Wow.
But then the greater area, I'd have to look up. I could be totally wrong.
What's the greater area? Like 2, all told, 200,000.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Let's find out.
I don't know. Yeah, find out for me, will you? Either way, it's
Bozeman Metro.
Yeah.
114,000.
Much bigger than where I grew up.
Yeah.
But still very small, like people kind of know you. There's a story I've had a couple of times where it's just small. You feel observed.
Yeah.
You're observed.
Well, I feel like that in Austin.
You feel observed here?
Yeah,
I fucking bet you do.
Much different than Los Angeles. There's also, and they're much more accustomed to famous people in Los Angeles. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's more of like, hey, there's that fucking guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they make a thing about it, where it's like in LA, it's just normal to see Ben Affleck or whatever the fuck. It's normal.
Yeah, you feel observed. I got this years ago. I did some ads for Subaru and got this car for free, like the way it worked, like for some reason, it was these like branded history things. Okay, so I got to pick like 13 things around the country that I thought were interesting, and one was like did this thing about this guy that there's this mountain range and a town and a pass and a national forest all named after this dude, and all that's really known about him is he got killed by a grizzly bear.
Is that Bridger?
No, his name is Lulu or Lolo.
Oh.
So there's the town of Lolo, there's Lolo Creek, there's Lolo Pass, there's Lolo National Forest, and all they know is there's like a dude that lived on a tributary to that creek, and he got killed by a grizzly. That's like really all I know about the guy. Anyways, I did a thing about where they think he might have been buried. And it did all these other things. It was like this thing, it was like these like ads that were on History Channel. And I would go and check out whatever, something that was interesting, but there'd be like these driving shots, right? Where you like drive there in a Subaru. So the way that stuff works is you have to buy the car just for insurance purposes. Like you buy the car from them and like invoice them for the car purchase.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how common this is. But anyways, I got to keep, when it was all said and done, I got the car. So we were going to sell it, but my wife started to drive it, and now we've had this thing we've had this car since 2009.
They're bulletproof.
Yeah, my wife drives it.
Fucking things.
And my wife's like very, when it comes to vehicles and stuff, like she's very pragmatic.
Joey Diaz drives nothing but Subarus.
Yeah.
Forever.
She'd be like, why would you buy a car if you got a car for free?
Yeah, is this your little ads?
Oh,
Look
yeah.
at you, young, fresh-faced
Dude, I was about like
Steve
4
Rinella.
years old.
Look at you.
Yeah, it was like 4.
Who's the guy with the hat?
He was a guy I wrote a magazine profile on that he hunts for old denim.
So this is 2007? Look how young you
No,
are.
2009 maybe.
Fine. I saw some old homestead cabins down here. I can't leave any stone unturned. I have to check it.
So yeah, that dude I wrote a piece. I did that one because I wrote a piece about that guy. He would go. I want to get back to this thing about this car, but this is interesting. So, you know the earthquake in San Francisco and the big fire, whatever the hell year that happened.
Yeah.
Late 1800s. When was that earthquake that destroyed San Francisco? Levi's lost their own catalog. They lost their own library of their clothes they made. So like Levi's denim,
1906.
they made, in that fire, Levi's lost their sort of history. Okay.
Wow.
So Levi's knows they made clothing that they know from advertisements that they have no physical representation of.
Wow.
So I wrote a piece about these dudes that they would go hunting around in mine shafts and stuff and find old ass denim. And the coolest thing to find was you would find a very old pre-1906 pair of Levi's. And these things would sell for like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000.
Really?
To collectors. They're all these like buckle back jeans. It was like they had buckles in the back, a couple buckles in the back, and that's how you'd cinch them up. So like if you found, yeah, collectors would call them buckle backs. Yeah, there you go. So this dude.
So was this before they figured out belts?
Yeah, it's just how they used to tie them, man, like buckle backs.
Huh.
So this dude, he got into that vintage denim stuff, but he also would find old clothes and sell them to collectors, sell them to people making films, looking for period clothing. And I went and I drove around with him in Nevada and wrote a profile on him. I think it was called like the Brotherhood of the Very Expensive Pants. It was when I was a writer for Outside.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, you know the coolest thing I found in the week I spent with him was a pair plugging up there's an old cabin on a ranch, and it had 2 chimneys, and at some point in time someone had moved his wood stove from one end of the cabin to the other and plugged the old chimney hole with a pair of jeans.
Wow.
And we go in there, so he'll go in and like he'd like strike a deal with ranchers. He'd be like, "Listen, man, and a lot of times they'd be like, he's like, I'm gonna look around and in your old buildings and stuff, and I find something, I'll buy it from you." They'd be like, "Bullshit, get out of here!" And just to turn him on, he would all of a sudden look, and whatever he could see, he would look and give him an insane price for nonsense, just to butter him up.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like how much is like?
It's like we went to this guy, and this guy had just junk everywhere, and it was like he had a lot of junk, and it'd also be like, there's the old cabin where Grandpa lived. There's the old rundown house where my mom and dad lived, and here's my house, and everything was exactly. They just would move across the property and build a new structure and leave the old ones in place. So he's dying to get in here and look around. And this guy had a T-shirt, like this guy's had an outdoor spigot that was dripping. For whatever reason, he tied like a T-shirt around it to deflect the drip, or whatever, to prevent erosion underneath there. I have no idea, but a T-shirt tied around a drippy thing. He goes, like that T-shirt, for instance, and gave him like $25 for the T-shirt. No desire to have the T-shirt, but he just had to he had to point to something.
So to let the guy know that he's got a real possible windfall here.
Yeah, and then the guy's like, well, damn, son, let's have a look. And he'd be in there buying saddle blankets and boots, hats, anything.
The jeans that plugged up the hole.
So we're on this place, and I was with him, man. He went through all the channels and like talked to the ranch manager, got hold of the rancher. The rancher's like, have a look, let me know what you find. Goes in there and pulls out. This had to be a very old, I can't remember what kind. It was like some other kind of jean. It wasn't old Levi. Pulled out a set of pants that had been plugging that chimney up since the early 1900s.
Whoa.
And you know how the sun, how often does the sun shine down a chimney?
Straight.
Yeah.
Like
not very often.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know, there's like 3 feet of pipe above these pants. And it looked like tie-dye because that part that was up, just being exposed to the rain and whatever limited amount of sunshine ever shined straight down that chimney, it'd like bleach those pants white. But he pulled those pants out, and there they were. And they find stuff like people used to make log homes and chink, like chinking between the logs, shirts and pants and shit.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He's got a whole damn place full of that stuff. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
And all that stuff is very valuable?
Because his place was called Carpe Denim, and people knew to go to him. He would have designers, okay, like clothing designers would want to go to his warehouse full of all of his crazy old shit he found to get inspiration.
Wow, look at all that stuff.
To get inspiration for, like whatever, like Dickies, Carhartt, whatever, like different designers would go and look around his stuff to get inspiration for it.
Jamie, send me this guy's Instagram page. It's Original Indian Jeans.
Yeah, that's him.
Original Indiana Jeans, sorry. Britt Eaton. I think all those old jeans were made out of hemp. I think before the 1930s, before hemp became a problem when they made marijuana illegal, and then you had to have like a stamp to grow hemp, and then it became phased out with the cotton gin. The decorticator actually was what brought it back. I think that was in the 1930s. But all before that, canvas itself came from cannabis. Like canvas was actually made with hemp. Like even like the Mona Lisa is painted on hemp. It's a far more durable fabric. And if you if we had hemp jeans, they'd be so much more durable. It's a weird cloth. Have you ever fucked around with hemp as a cloth?
I bet he'd be able to tell you a lot about it.
Oh, I bet he would. It's the fibers are really insane. I had a friend of mine, my friend Todd McCormick, used to grow marijuana, and was like one of the first guys ever to be arrested for it when they had medical marijuana, but they were still charging people federally because it was medical in California. But when you would go to jail, you would realize once you went to court that you couldn't bring up medical marijuana because you were in a federal trial.
Oh, really?
And the federal trials, they wouldn't even recognize it. You were just a drug dealer to them. And he was like, oh, my God, like this is a crazy racket. Like I'm getting railroaded here because you couldn't even say, no, I was growing it for medical purposes in the state where it's legal medically. So he had a stalk of this stuff, and you would pick it up, and it would be hard like oak, but light like balsa wood. It was the wildest shit. Like you'd realize like there's nothing like that fiber on earth. And when you take that fiber and break it down, the paper, like they would make hemp paper, and it's crazy. Like you can't tear it, but it feels like paper. It's so superior. hemp clothing is insanely durable, like so much more durable than cotton.
Yeah, and all the hemp rope. I'm not from. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with in the pioneer and frontier days the use of hemp for rope and other fabrics.
Parachutes,
but,
yeah, like the parachute that George Herbert Walker Bush parachuted to safety with in World War II. That was made out of hemp.
Yeah.
They used to make all the parachutes made out of hemp. This is far more durable than cotton.
So get this car.
Subaru.
Yeah, and all of a sudden one day, where our office is, like my wife drives a car, and all of a sudden where our office is all these bumper stickers that say like Rinella drives a Subaru on people's cars, but not my car. And so it's like someone like observing, someone in this area, like observing what my wife drives and like printing a bumper sticker. Just like weird.
That's weird.
Yeah, like small town stuff, But I had to inquire around. It was some dude that works at, it was some event, like it was like these dudes that worked at Sitka. And then I eventually found out which one of them did it. And he'd like try to get a job with us. And that was like his like vengeance thing. But just like bizarre, man. You feel just observed.
He tried to get a job with you and he couldn't get a job. So then he made a bumper sticker that said the kind of car you drive.
Yeah, and pasted it on people's cars in our parking lot, but not my car.
Whoa. Thank God you didn't hire that guy.
Well, it just winds up, it's just weird, man.
Well,
so it's like,
that is a problem with hiring people, right? Like you never know.
no, just like, so there is like an observed quality, but I hate to be negative about it. I mean, I have so many wonderful, wonderful friends, and it's a great, beautiful, great place to live. But there's like
The good with the bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're gonna get both.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. And when people get rejected, I mean, imagine being a woman, experiencing like some guy tries to hit on you and you reject him, and then this guy's stalking your social media and sending you evil letters, and that's a very common thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure for guys too.
Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah. People are fucking crazy. A good percentage of them, 1 out of 100, out of their fucking mind. You run into them, you zig when you should have zagged, boom, you got a problem. And you got to be real careful. Got to have a good filtering system to keep those people out of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine when you have an organization like yours, where you have a lot of employees, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, MeatEater, man, we have 100 people that work for us. Because we have an apparel company.
So First Light is
Ketchum.
Underneath MeatEater. It's
Yeah.
in MeatEater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you keep it in Ketchum.
they stay there. They're in Ketchum. I mean, we have a ton of, a ton of overlap. But no, they have like person in Ketchum that runs that program, and they have a bunch of people. Phelps game calls. They're in
that's
Washington.
right. You guys are a part of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jason, he's been on our podcast a bunch. He's been.
Yeah.
We're filming with him.
He sent me one of his new bugle tubes that has the built-in
The built-in
reed.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Dude, I'm telling you what, man. I have never. He wants to go with you real bad. You'd love that dude. He's like, his whole family's been loggers for a million years. He's the first one to not be a logger in Western Washington, And he started out. He's like trained as an engineer, but started out making game calls, and he's just an incredible guy. But I hunted with him this year, and I've never seen. I've been like, I used to think Yanni was like God when it came to elk calling, and Yanni hunts with Phelps, and Yanni's like, dude, I felt like an idiot, like a child.
Well, he is a real wizard. I mean, I've heard videos of him online.
Oh my God, that guy's amazing. He'd be like, no, that bull's gonna come and look over right here.
That thing that he made is so good that I had my daughter, my 11-year-old, make a bugle call. It was pretty fucking good. I'm seeing if I can find it because I filmed it because I just thought it'd be hilarious.
Oh, her ripping on it.
See her first ever attempt.
Yeah, Phelps is great. He's a good dude. He lives there, and then we have another company that's with us called FHF. They make like the bino harnesses and all kinds of.
Oh, you guys are with them too?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, and they're in Belgrade, Montana.
You guys are like the Facebook of the outdoor. You just keep gobbling up all the competitors.
Well, no.
Yeah, the government needs to step in and break you guys up.
FHF gear was built. FHF gear was built by a police officer, Paul Lewis. Still runs FHF gear. They do. It's all American made. He's still in there.
I have one of those. They're very good.
His wife, Jen Lewis, they work together. Phelps is still at Phelps game calls. Me and him are doing a project where we've been filming this, where we went to Kansas and we cut down a black walnut tree. And there's probably 1,000 turkey calls hiding in that black walnut. And we're doing a thing about turning that black walnut tree into 1,000 turkey calls.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That'll be cool.
I'm trying to find this video, and I'm not going to.
Of your daughter ripping on the metal bugle tube?
Yeah, because it's funny. Because it's not bad for like a first ever attempt at blowing a bugle tube for a child.
Yeah,
pretty fucking good.
Phelps, he holds the patent on aluminum bugle tubes.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It's
interesting that everybody else was making them out of plastic, and then he figured out there's a different sound.
Oh, it's different.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's there, and then we have our media, kind of like the media end of our business is based out of Bozeman. But we have content contributors like you've had Clay Newcomb on.
Yeah,
he's in Arkansas.
He's a fucking interesting guy.
Oh yeah, Danielle Pruitt is here, she's in Texas. Mark Kenyon's one of our.
What is that? What does she do?
She's just a content contributor with us. She has a brand that she built up called Wild and Whole, and does.
Is that a podcast as well?
No, she doesn't do a podcast, but she does a lot of hunting and fishing stuff, but a lot of culinary stuff. That's her particular area of interest. So she's there, and we work she works with us. We work very closely. She's in Houston. Mark Kenyon's out in Michigan. So we have people all over. Content contributors, but we're based there in Montana.
Do you ever feel like you get spread thin with all that stuff? Like I know you have a lot of podcasts under the MeatEater umbrella, and there's just a lot of stuff. I feel spread thin? Yeah. Does it feel the company like? Do you ever feel like it's difficult to keep track of everything and make sure that the quality is up to standard, or that
I haven't felt that because. I haven't felt that because I feel that primarily it's been able to sort of like let me speak to it in the way of what I'm involved with. Okay. I mean, I'm involved in everything and I have awareness of what goes on, but I have, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I have like a team of people that I work with on producing things that are like my primary day-to-day responsibility, being that we just launched season like just a week ago, I think. We launched 5 new episodes on Netflix, right?
Season 9?
So that's our season 10 part A. Just went live on Netflix. So like I'm heavily involved in making that. We do a lot of books. I'm heavily involved in our book projects. I'm heavily involved in certain stuff. By having a team of people around that I work really closely with, it's just like you're able to like greatly amplify what you put out.
Yeah.
Like I'm able to do more. And that means a lot to me because I had spent my life up until we started a company, I'd spent my life, a lot of it just as one writer. And it takes a couple years to write a book, And so my output was constrained by just like what was one person capable of doing. When I wrote my Buffalo book, I researched it for 2 years and then spent 9 months writing the book. And I wasn't doing much else then. Now I'm able to do a bunch of projects and have stuff going out. So there's a cost, there's some cost to it, but mostly I view it as like a tremendous amount of gain to be able to do all those things. In terms of getting into working with brands that we love, so far it's been people that like the companies we work with are people that First Light, for instance, was one of the first sponsors we ever had for our show. Vortex Optics and First Light were so the first 2 people that ever kind of got behind our show. I knew Phelps for a long time. I've been wearing an FHF bino harness. I mean, I remember like my late friend Eric Kern turned me on to FHF stuff like a bazillion years ago when Paul was just stitching away in his like basement or whatever, So to have it be that those relationships matured and we kind of like came together under one company, it all seems like very natural to me. It all seems like just things growing and getting better. So I have never felt like too spread thin. And then we have, I mean, like I said, we have a lot of people that kind of know what they're doing. I have to be pretty careful I've had to learn to know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Learn what I don't know, I had to learn what I don't know. and to not and to give people like faith to do the things they do.
Right. So your
that I don't
roles
know how to
shifted
do.
to become like a manager.
Yeah,
Almost,
man,
in
I'm such a
some
bad
ways.
manager, man. That became clear through the pandemic and stuff. But no, I can't manage. I can't really manage people. I mean, I can.
Why is that?
Why can't I manage people? Because it's kind of hard to explain. I only have one way of that's a good question. I don't think I have developed multiple ways to interact with people.
Huh.
I sort of have like one way in which I can interact. Like I have one way in which I can interact with people.
How? In what way? What do you mean by that? Well, obviously, you have different way you interact with your kids than you do with your wife.
Okay, that's fair. When dealing with people, in my age bracket, I can't step into a role like I can't step into a position of being able to not have it be very close and very personal. I think a large thing is that you've met some of the people I work with. Some of the people we spend an enormous amount of time together. We travel together. We're like sleep in tents together. We're together all the time. It's that I can only interact in the way that I've learned to interact with my peers since I was a kid. And in that proximity, like I can't be that I'm going down to work and I need to put like my work way on. I think that I probably I probably share too much information. I probably don't conceal my annoyance. I probably have I have high expectations. Yeah, I don't know. And when I see people who are like actual people managers, they have a more calculated approach. And my approach, I guess, is very emotional.
Or more authentic. The problem with those calculated people managers is they probably cut loose somewhere, and they probably put on a dress and get a bunch of hookers or do
could be.
something nutty. Where they that's the thing about CEOs, right? They're the ones who always like to go to dominatrix and get kicked in the balls
because they're being so calculated.
Yeah,
all the
it's
time.
like they're so wrapped up in this thing that they're doing. Like if you're a person and you're running a company, you're essentially performing all day long, right? Because you can only be a certain amount of yourself. Like most people like to tell jokes that are maybe inappropriate or use language that's maybe inappropriate or say things that everybody's thinking but you really shouldn't say.
Yeah.
They like to do that occasionally. Well, if you're a CEO of some major company, that would come with enormous financial consequences. As
some of them have found on this very show.
Yes. Well, that was nothing. He just smoked a little weed. He made the money back the next day. The company went down like 6%, went up 9% the next day. But everybody wants to talk about the 6% and went down the first day.
No one wants to talk about the 9%.
Yeah, 9% the next. Everybody's like, look, it's a fucking giant company. It's going to go great. But I was reading about someone from Bezos's Blue Origin company, right? It just got fired for something. It's like you're the way you're allowed to behave if you're a big wig in some sort of a large corporation is very narrow. There's a very narrow, acceptable way that you're allowed to behave, and you're scrutinized like extremely closely. So if you want to be that guy that has that makes all this money and gets all this stock and has all this responsibility, you also have to behave in a way that's kind of unnatural. It's not just that you're not allowed to do anything inappropriate, but that you have to have a very measured and unemotional tone. You have to be like very conscious of how people are going to perceive or even distort what you're saying. Look at it and take it out of context. It's got to be an incredibly pressure-filled thing to do where you're doing that every day 8+. I mean, no CEO really works 8 hours a day, right? You're working 9, 10, 12, whatever the fuck it is. They got to do that every day. I mean, that's how many of them die of heart attacks? How many of them die of cancer? How many of them, like, the pressure gets to be too much and they can't take it?
Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe
better the way you behave.
Maybe so. Yeah, and maybe some of my terminology is not wrong. I'm interested in. To me, the word leadership feels a lot different than the word management.
Yeah. Well, leadership through example is always an interesting thing, because it's like there's certain people that you admire and the way they live their life, like their show, like Jocko Willink is a great example, right? He shows leadership through example, like the way he lives his life, like very disciplined, very fair, very smart, very open-minded and objective, doesn't have any weaknesses in his like social game, but also, you know, just like a real like a prime example of discipline, you know, and through that you go, well, that's a leader, you know. You see,
I got you. Yeah. I wind up in working with people. I wind up having a lot of love for people that will shovel shit, that grew up and know what that's all about, right? Mm-hmm. That probably more than any other thing means a lot to me. Like someone who will jump in and like shovel shit when it needs to happen. I like people who will take a bullet for what they're working on. Who can articulate their perspective on something, but know when to give in.
Yeah.
But can fight just to the right moment, right? And they're not doing it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
But then in the end, it's like, okay, now we got to move. We got to go.
Well, having been on your show a few times, I've always admired the amount of work that's involved, like for the cameramen and the folks that are running the show behind the scenes, sound, all that stuff, because those guys are there 24 hours a day. Like if you're on a trip and that trip is a 7-day trip in the backcountry, it's not like you're doing an 8-hour day job. Mm-hmm. It is a 24-hour day experience. And your responsibilities, obviously work-wise, are from the time you start hunting to the time you're done hunting. And that is like from dark until dusk. You get up when it's dark, and you don't end hunting unless you're successful, until it's dusk. You're filming the entire time. So these folks are working long hours. And then there's no hotel to go to. The hotel is a fucking thin foam thing that's over rocks. And then you lay your sleeping bag over that, and you're sleeping, and oftentimes you're freezing your dick off. Like when we were in Montana the first time I ever went with you, I was like, wow, this is a job. Like imagine this job where your job is all day. There's no like, I'm punching in, I'm punching out. There's none of that. The job is constant. Yeah. It's all day. It's a very unusual job, because if you looked at like the hours that those guys work, it's hard to quantify, because you're kind of working when you're fucking sleeping on a rock. Like, that's not normal.
It's all the time.
Yeah.
And I in that management thing, I guess I have to remind myself to think like they're at work.
Yes.
Because I'm more like we're just in it.
Yeah.
We're in it, and you have to be in it. But then I'm like, holy shit, these dudes are at work.
And
why in the world would they do that?
It's not like any other jobs. Like, say, if you're filming a television show, an adventure show, right? And you're filming an adventure show, and you're looking at mushroom specimens in the woods. You're gonna have a shooting schedule. Mm-hmm. Like at 8 a.m. we're gonna have breakfast. At 9:30, Paul's gonna go out and examine all these different mushrooms and show everybody. And then we're gonna have dinner at 6 p.m. And then, we're going to wrap it up for the day, and then we're going to start up. And there's none of that with you guys. You guys are out there. Plus, you might be 7-8 miles from camp. Mm-hmm. And then you got to huff all the way back with fucking headlights on in the middle of the night. And then you're looking at your watch like, Jesus Christ, we got to be awake in 7 hours. you know, and then you haven't even eaten yet, and then you eat, and then you crash, and then it's like, all right, everybody up, it's 5, like, fuck.
Yeah,
You know?
we have a lot of what we would call death marches. And one day we were trying to define what a death march is, and Yanni feels that it's not a death march until there's a fight that breaks out.
The people are arguing
about what way to go. you know?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. You develop very, intimate relationships with people, man.
Yeah.
You develop intimate relationships with people, and it's hard, and for that professionalism and all that, it's doing that, months to being together all the time in whatever, like in tents or in a rental house and in cars and just like, ugh,
Yeah.
right? You can't stay, you can't stay buttoned up quite like maybe how you're supposed to.
Right. Like if you were a CEO. Yes. Yeah. It's a different kind of experience. And it's also an experience that I think is really lost in translation in all of hunting media. I think you do the very best at sort of, well, first of all, your show is fantastic because of your narration and because of the you have a very clear love of the wilderness and of animals and of the experience of hunting. But it's hard to encapsulate a 7-day really rigorous experience into an hour-long show. Mm-hmm. And it's lost to people that don't experience, like to me who's done it with you. I can watch one of your shows and I can go, man, I wish I was there the whole time, where I would really get a sense of like how hard it was to find the bulls, and then you hear them in the distance, and then you got to walk 3 miles through this valley and try to get to this other ridge, and then you glass them up, and then they're already gone because they caught your wind. And there's so much, the seesaw ride of the experience of trying to navigate your way through the woods and hunt, and then the wild thrill of it being successful or the failure. All of those things are, the worst thing that's ever happened to hunting, I think, is hunting shows. And that, not yours, but a lot of them, there's like shitty music and bad writing, and it's like it's all about the kill. And to people that don't have any experience doing that, they're watching and it's sort of encapsulated into this very brief moment of people laughing and hooting and hollering because they shot a deer. Like, why are you happy? Like, people don't understand it. Like, what is happening here? Like, why are you happy?
Yeah, because you feel the experience hasn't like teed that up.
Yeah, you're missing everything. Yeah. It's like if all of romance was boiled down to an orgasm. It's like, Jesus, there's so much more to human experiences and relationships. There's so much more to hunting. It's like everything else. Like, there's so much more to like if you see a fight and like that this guy punches that guy and that guy falls down. If that's all you see, if you're just like a highlight of a knockout, you're missing so much, and the struggle, and the people that are in the camp with them, they're the only ones who really know. Like, if someone is in a camp, with Roy Jones Jr. in his prime, they see all the training leading up to the fight and then the fight. Those are the people that get the real experience. And I feel like no one gets the real experience of hunting until you do it. And it's one of the reasons why it's so misrepresented and misunderstood in the general public, in the people that don't hunt. In our culture, hunting has gotten this very bizarre bad rap, and even amongst people who eat meat. And I think a lot of it is because of that. I think your organization and what you've done with MeatEater, with your writing, particularly with your show, is the best thing that's ever happened to hunting in the modern era, because it explains it and displays it in a well thought out, intelligent way that's filled with emotion, and it's filled with introspective thought and articulate discussion, and in a way that people get a chance to see, maybe I had the wrong impression of what this is.
We made many of our episodes they were 22 minutes long. And we still on Sportsman Channel, Outdoor Channel, 22 minutes.
Yeah.
When you watch a half-hour show, you're watching 22 minutes of stuff.
Yeah.
It's traditionally we would produce it in a 4-act structure, so you had an enormous amount of constraint on how you put this thing together. Premiering episodes on Netflix, you're not held to that. You're not held to like the act structure. You can kind of make them their own natural length. But we had a lot of training early on in making that happen, and that was that's where the skill of the editors is. How do you take hours? How do you take maybe 100 hours of stuff and compress it down in 22 minutes in some way that was true to the experience? There's stuff you don't show, there's stuff you do show, but yeah, it's tight. It's 22 minutes. It's hard to capture it. I think that the key in doing it is that I'd made the show with a lot of people who are like very key, and Mo, right? Mo, Nick Brigden, like people early on that were like very involved in making the show what it was making. These people, these weren't hunters. They were people who were very interested in story. They were very interested in sort of like the rhythm of a story, how a story got captured, how a story got laid out. And so they weren't coming from a lifetime of watching hunting media. They were coming from a lifetime of how do you do this thing, which is take people on an emotional, like create an emotional journey for someone doing something.
Right.
And they applied that skill set with me, who had a level of subject matter expertise and had my own understanding of narrative that I developed as a writer, but like come in and apply that universal storytelling principles to this thing that other people might have felt was beneath them. But they had the generosity of spirit in those early days. They had the generosity of a spirit to take this thing and see some kind of beauty in it and help develop it into a thing where they were like applying their expertise to it.
And kind of the only time it's ever been done before. I don't think before you anybody had ever done it that way. I mean, for context, like Mo Fallon went on to direct Parts Unknown with Bourdain, and
he was an assistant to the film director Michael Mann.
Yeah,
I mean the dude went. I mean, he was.
And he's a
like,
brilliant
like
guy.
Making. He went to Africa and worked on Ali.
Yeah,
right. Like
an incredibly interesting person in his own right, and for him to. And then eventually became a hunter, which is interesting too, right? Through doing your show.
What's funny about some of the guys that come on to work on the show is they wind up having, they might not have hunted, but they wind up having quite an education.
Yeah.
In it, and they get where they have well-earned opinions, and they're good at spotting stuff, and like they got to develop where like Mo's modest, right? So he'd be the last guy that'd ever be like, he wouldn't call himself a thing, but Mo's been exposed to during those years that he worked with us. Mo was exposed to kind of like more action than most people that hunt are ever going to be exposed to. He's just exposed an enormous amount, and processed it in an interesting way.
When you see the landscape of like hunting media, like have you seen the level of it come up since MeatEater? I mean, you guys, it was like 2012 you came around. It's like been about 9 years. Yeah,
this is our 10th year, our 10th season. I've seen enormous changes, and it's hard to untangle. What, like, the impacts of digital media, right? Because during that time we were undergoing all this stuff with like distribution channels changed so much, and you had sort of the gatekeepers melted away. You have people producing a lot of stuff like our company. We do a lot of direct to YouTube series, so you're able to put material out. So people that wanted to make good material might before they hadn't fallen into, they didn't like line up with what people felt should be broadcast.
Yeah.
And now they're able to put out what they want to make. So it's hard to untangle what might have happened in in outdoor media from what is just happening in media, with the ability of with the ability of creative individuals to come out, make a thing, and then have the thing be seen by other people without it needing to be something that someone decided on.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, you're seeing that in all aspects of everything. But so have I seen big changes in hunting media? Absolutely, because even in our own ability to put out material, I've seen enormous changes. We do tons more, and we're able to do stuff without having someone say that it's okay to do it.
Yeah, that's such an important point, because without that point, without that ability, podcasts would have never existed. And it's all that no one would have ever let you do something like this.
Yeah,
So-
you wouldn't have gone and pitched it and had someone say yeah. But I do a lot's changed. I think that the celebration of the culinary aspects of hunting and fishing, absolutely, they're far more represented now than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Far more represented.
You never saw it. You just saw the kill. The first time I ever saw anybody cooking was on your show, and the first time I ever cooked any kind of wild game myself was on your show.
Yeah,
when we shot that mule deer in Montana.
I'm very I never would. So much has been done. You can't come in and ever claim to have. You can't claim to have invented anything because there's so much stuff out there. But yeah, there's a mix. There's a mix of things covered that. We cover a sort of recipe or a formula of things that hadn't been covered quite the way we cover them.
Is there an issue now with YouTube where I know they have new guidelines for hunting where you're not allowed to show the kill? You're not allowed to show the impact of a bullet or of an arrow. And I don't think you're allowed to show any kind of suffering. And you may not be able to show butchering. I'm not sure about that.
I don't believe that has not been a thing that we've encountered.
There's a new thing about demonetization. Have you seen these new rules? See if you can Google this. You might not even be aware of it because I think it's very recent. As a matter of fact, I think it came out last week.
Oh, well, then that might be something that will come. If that's a demonetization issue, I haven't been.
Yeah, well, YouTube has been very heavy-handed with their this concept of demonetization, and it's sort of a way of encouraging self-censorship.
Sure.
And we found that out in a weird way when we stopped doing when we were moving from YouTube to Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, all of our shows that used to be demonetized were no longer demonetized. Like maybe 25% of our shows would be demonetized on YouTube. 25% of them would not be eligible for any sort of income. That all changed as soon as we went over to Spotify. Then 100% of the shows got monetized. Upon closer inspection, the YouTube ad-friendly content guidelines was found that in July of 2021, the policy was updated to make it clear that footage of animals in distress induced by human intervention may not run ads. Naturally, the hunting and killing of animals fall within the new guideline, meaning that hunting content as we know it can no longer be used to make money on YouTube. The exact policy reads as follows. You can turn on ads for this content, hunting content where there is no depiction of graphic animal injuries or prolonged suffering. Hunting videos where the moment of kill or injury is indiscernible and no focal footage of how this dead animal is processed for trophy or food purposes, which is crazy. Well, it says, while they don't go into much detail, it seems clear that any impact shots or footage of an animal after it's been shot is no longer acceptable to make ad revenue. So the thing is, how far? This is from bowhunting.com.
Yeah, I don't know because I was watching. I really don't. I can't comment on it, and I don't know how. I can't comment on it. I don't know how it's being interpreted. I was watching things this morning, not our own material, but I was watching things this morning that were monetized that would not conform.
Here's where they might not have put that in effect, but here's where it gets squirrely. We've seen things that were not monetized, meaning the people who created them did not get money, but there's still ads on them.
Oh, yeah.
So that's real, right?
Yeah.
Correct? Where things were not monetized.
Like they're serving ads on their platform, but they're not sharing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas the creators don't get money, but there was an ad on it. Hasn't that been a complaint that people have levied before? I don't necessarily think that's happened to us, but I do believe that has been a complaint that people have said, hey, my video's demonetized, but it still has an ad on it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's real, right?
I'm sure.
Let's Google that just to be sure. And in fairness to YouTube, I mean, I always say this, and it's an important point. YouTube is managing at scale in an impossible volume. The amount of people that are uploading videos to YouTube on a daily basis, and to even hire people that are supposed to watch all that shit as it's being made is impossible.
Yeah,
there's no way you could do it.
No, you have hundreds of hours, hundreds and hundreds of hours of content uploaded every minute.
Yeah. I mean, just imagine assigning someone to listen to this fucking show, to watch every episode, 3 fucking hours every day. Look at this motherfucker. He takes up half my day.
Yeah, but that part of the thing of having a media company, is where we put a lot of focus. Is I'm very interested in a broad distribution.
Yeah, here it is right here.
Oh.
YouTube will put ads on non-partner videos but won't pay the creators. Yeah, YouTube said in an update to its terms of services this week that it has the right to monetize all content on its platform. As such, it said it will start putting ads on videos from channels not in the YouTube partner program, which shares ad revenue with creators. So yeah, that's it.
That's what Facebook does, though.
Yep.
I mean, did for 15 years or whatever it was for a long time.
Well, that was the crazy thing about YouTube, right? Was that YouTube, in a remarkable, fair move, decided to share revenue with the people that are creating content, encouraging people to create content. Yeah. Because I feel like if they didn't do that, people would still have created content. Like, they really didn't have to do that. Like, and I remember when they first started doing it, when we first started making money, we're like, you can make money?
Yeah, we had a podcast episode the other day with an early YouTuber, a dude named Jared Outlaw, like an early YouTuber, and he talked a lot about that being a major transition point. And like as an early YouTuber, it was when monetization became possible that it just really transformed the YouTube community. And he like identified as a YouTuber. But with media, a thing that I remain very interesting is this like diversification of distribution, because you are so vulnerable.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah.
We publish with Random House. We produce podcasts that we distribute as free material podcasts, but then we just recently released a very high grade audio original thing through Random House, and it was not even. We released a book that never had a book version, so it was our project Campfire Stories. Released it with them, do stuff on social, release material through traditional. We still work with Sportsman Channel, right? Everywhere, all the time, so that you don't feel like someone's gonna like unplug you all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, we were in this situation before the Spotify deal where I was very nervous because we would have controversial discussions, discussions on controversial subjects, and subjects that where you would get removed even if what you're saying was correct. Like a perfect example is the lab leak theory, like the lab leak theory for COVID-19.
Oh yeah, you used to be a nut job for thinking that was plausible.
Exactly. But I had people on the podcast in April of 2020 saying that, and I was labeled a dangerous conspiracy theorist by like these different left-wing media platforms that had decided that there was only one narrative, despite the fact that I had evolutionary biologists that were explaining in detail why, when you study these viruses, it appears they've been manipulated.
I remember it being very naughty.
Very naughty.
Very naughty to think that a place that studies coronaviruses would have it be that someone would catch a coronavirus.
It's hilarious,
at
right?
that place.
I mean,
and
the fact that
what are you, some kind of right-wing nut?
It broke out in the very exact town and the exact neighborhood where this fucking level 4 lab is. But that was part of the problem with having a president like Trump, who is so fucking polarizing, that anything that he agreed with, people immediately disagreed with it.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have agreed with some of the most amazing inventions in the history of the world. You'd be a racist if you agreed with them because of the fact that Trump was a proponent of them, that he was promoting them. So I recognized...
I always fantasized about a quiet version
of Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, like someone who wasn't bombastic.
You would have many policies. He could have pursued many policies or let me put it this way, Obama could have sold many of his policies, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, it makes sense."
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, in fact, he did.
Yeah.
Particularly the stuff about the border. When people talk about how Trump was so horrific in his border, like there's speeches where Obama is talking about how we can't have porous borders and we have to protect our borders.
And people are like, "Oh
this,
yeah, it makes total sense." Yeah,
this is outrageous today.
But
You
no,
say that
he could.
today.
It would have been interesting to pursue many of his policy positions in a way where he would come and be like, I see both sides, but after careful consideration.
Well, it's hard, right? Because the guy's entire career, he had this one persona, this "fuck you, pay me, I'm the man." You're fired. He was always like, Rosie's gross. He always had like Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting he would like insult people openly. And that was part of his thing. And he did it while he was president, which was wild. It was wild to see a president, sitting president, talking about a woman he had sex with and calling her horse face. Like, I remember seeing that on Twitter going, this is crazy. Like, he's not changing at all. But that's what got him to the dance. But that's what got people excited about him. Oh, he's real, he's PC. But it also really fucking polarized the people that were in opposition to him. And so because of that, everybody kind of lost their mind. Yeah. And it became where you couldn't even discuss things with actual experts that were experts in the field that you were discussing. People that had no education in it whatsoever were deciding that these subjects were off limits and now would be demonetized. And I saw that comment. I was like, that's a real problem for me because I'm not going to change how I do the show. I can't. There's no reason. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't enjoy it. I'd hate myself. If there was subjects that were taboo that I found profoundly interesting and I didn't discuss them because I thought I would be demonetized, I would be fucked. I would be like, why am I doing this then? Why don't I quit? Because I want it to be just like if you and I were having a conversation, if we were sitting across a fucking dinner table or we're hanging out at your house and we just start talking about stuff and it's interesting, I want to just talk about it. I just want the cameras to be on it so other people can be in on the conversation. But I'm not going to change how I do this. I'm never going to change how I do this. So we were in this situation where I was like, okay, well, should we start putting stuff on? We put stuff on Vimeo for quite a while. I'm like, should I start expanding and looking for other online video platforms? Would that water us down? Would that help us? And then I started thinking about all these other social media platforms. Maybe I should join them and start posting them. But a lot of them are like, you get labeled a right-wing kook if you're on these. And, there's all these QAnon folks on there. And, it's one of those things where we're in such a strange time when it comes to media. Because everybody is sort of making the rules up as they go along, and the amount of censorship that these companies are allowed to they're allowed to employ with no real regulations in terms of the First Amendment or
they're privately held companies.
I know they are, but they're so big that they're not really it's not simple anymore. Like Twitter is responsible for an enormous portion of the world's discourse.
Yeah.
And to say that that's just a private company, then these people that run this private company, like who are they? Like they're the arbiters of information. They're the people that are allowed to decide based on their own policies, which is based on their own ideologies, what is and is not acceptable.
But you're one of the country's biggest media personalities.
How odd.
Well, I'm just telling you. I don't know if you don't know this. You are.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Are you willing to have someone come to you and say that you need to be more fair to everyone because you have outsized influence?
It's the opposite. I would want other people to be able to talk freely the way I'm able to talk freely. I wouldn't want to restrict their ability to do a podcast just because I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If I have an opinion on things, I always think that the answer. And I've been wrong before, and if I'm wrong, I always try to correct myself if I find out that I'm wrong. I'm not one that tries to bury like an incorrect statement. I will try to expose it and try to explain how I was incorrect.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would trust you if you don't do that, especially when you're doing something like this where, we don't talk before this. This is one subject that we did talk about before this. What was
the deer.
The deer thing.
No, you told me not to talk
having
about
COVID.
it.
I was like, let's not hold that. Let's talk about it on the podcast because I knew it was interesting. Deer having COVID. But we don't have like a set agenda. So when you don't have a set agenda, there's oftentimes you're going to come across things, and thank God Jamie's the best one-handed Googler in the business. Because
Very good.
like, I don't know what the fuck we're going to talk about while we're talking. That's part of the fun of the show, is that it is just a conversation.
Yeah.
As soon as I micromanage that and change, it's like it's going to lose whatever appeal it has to me. Because the appeal it has to me is like to be able to have conversations. I want everybody to be able to do that. The problem with people that have rigid ideologies that also have the power to decide what people can and can't do is that you get situations like the lab leak hypothesis where they're wrong and they're banning people and they're censoring people, and it goes on for months and months and months, and it destroys people's faith in free expression. It destroys the ability to have conversations about the subject that are important, because you have to say, well, why do you believe that this leak hypothesis is probable? When then you have an evolutionary biologist on, or a virologist, or an epidemiologist, and they start explaining things or debating it in a way that it seems like it's not possible. And you can't have those conversations if someone has an ideological opposition to an idea based on a person who's a proponent of that idea, like Donald Trump, saying it's the Chinese virus, and then all of a sudden everybody says, well, if you discuss it having leaked from a lab, that you're a racist. And then, you've got to be able to figure out what's right and what's wrong. The only way is through discussion. The only way. It's the only way. You can't have a person who decides you can no longer talk about this subject because this subject has detrimental effects on X, Y, or Z. Well, it says who? Because some people would say it doesn't, and some people would say, well, X, Y, and Z are problematic because you can't have that discussion. So they're these sacred topics that you can never really get an understanding of. And then they're like a religion. Like, what are they now? And now you're not allowed to take the Lord's name in vain. You're not allowed to talk about the Wuhan clinic. Like, what are we doing? Like, are we talking, or are we under this weird censorship of these people that really don't have any expertise in the subject at hand? You can't have expertise in every subject. So as soon as you have people that are ideologically opposed to certain discussions, you got a real problem with free speech. And I think that an argument can be made with all these social media platforms that they're so fucking big now that they can influence so much of the world's discussions that we have to figure out where we stand in terms of free expression. Because if you say to a person, you can't talk on Twitter because you don't believe in that a man can be a woman. That's a good example, right? Like, because that's one of the things that gets you banned from Twitter. If you don't believe a man can be a woman, like a trans woman, or if you use this is one you get banned from. If you decide to become Stevina Rinella, and you change, and I keep calling you Steve, little old Steve Rinella, like, I'm dead naming you. That's called dead naming, and that's a ban for life.
I hadn't heard that word.
You get banned for life. Well,
Really?
this is crazy, because like that's your name,
Yeah.
right? It's been your name for 40 plus years. Why can't I call you that anymore? That's so offensive. But I can call you a cunt. I can call you a dope. I can call you a stupid piece of shit, and that's fine. But if I call you by your old name, I'm dead naming you. Well, now we're in a weird ideological thing, right? Because we've decided this is a protected class of people, and that you can't even have this offensive discussion about this protected class of people. So you've set up almost like this religious barricade to free expression about this one very, in your ideas, sensitive subject. That's nonsense. That's a crazy way to dictate how people can and can't talk. And you develop this, you're going to have these people that are going to say things behind closed doors and be terrified that other people are listening. And that shouldn't be that way on the internet, especially when you're dealing with, fucking most of the people on Twitter, they're not even using their name. They have some fake name in their profile.
To challenge orthodoxy, you either have to get really good. If you're going to challenge orthodoxy, you have to be so good that you can do it in a way that you don't like set off the alarms. Certain comedians are able to do it.
Yeah.
Comedians are probably the best trained to do it.
Yeah. You can wiggle your way, but it has to have like an impact. But oftentimes, like, people will take what you're doing out of context.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
had that happen to me.
for sure.
Yeah,
I see that happen to comedians. I think like a lot of comedians. I've brought this up that I think that you do this, whether you mean to or not. You build a sort of balance in it, And what makes it okay to laugh about stuff is you're willing to laugh about yourself and you're willing to laugh about your own opinions.
Oh, I mean
you're willing
it.
to laugh about your own
Yeah.
history. Okay, that gives people some room to play.
Yes.
But when you strip out certain portions, you can make someone look terrible.
Sure, out of context, in quotes, in an article. Yeah, I have a whole bit about it, about some of the stuff that happened to me during the election with Bernie Sanders, because it was so hilarious to read these articles where they're taking jokes and they're just taking a small snippet of
Yeah,
a
no,
bit.
I saw
Yeah.
some of that material.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
This is a problem with a lot of discourse in today's society because people are being they're being dishonest in doing that. They're being dishonest, and if you can't reply to that, if somehow you're banned from Twitter or you're banned from YouTube or you're banned from Facebook or something like this comes up and you have no recourse, there's no way you can defend yourself. Like that to me is a real issue because I've seen so many people mischaracterized, misquoted, taken out of context, or even lied about. Like I've had fucking CNN say I'm taking horse dewormer. I've seen that. When I've got ivermectin prescribed by a doctor that's meant for humans and a medication that actually won the Nobel Prize for its use in humans. And CNN lies about it. And they do it on purpose and they know what they're doing. So it's like if you can't defend yourself or there's nowhere you can say the truth, like what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Do we have just sanctioned bodies that are allowed to manipulate reality for their own financial benefit or to promote whatever narrative that they think is either beneficial or sanctioned? Like, is that free speech? That's not free speech. So if you can't defend yourself on Twitter, if you can't defend yourself on Facebook or YouTube, if you don't have a podcast, those are your options. And if they remove you from one of those options or all those options, like that was one of the crazy things that the White House press secretary said, is that if you get removed from any social media platform for misinformation, you should be removed from all of them. Well, what about if you're right? That's what she said, which is so crazy. Like, that's not your position. Okay, your position is to be saying what the president will do or won't do, what is the policy, answer the reporter's questions. Your job is not to dictate what social media companies do or don't do in terms of misinformation. And to even think that this is your place to manipulate or suggest is fucking chaos. It's crazy. It's crazy that we're in a position where a person would say something like that. We should ban more people for misinformation. Well, define misinformation, because you give a lot of it yourself. Like the fucking White House press secretary is responsible for the occasional misinformation.
Yeah.
Like what happens there? Should you be banned? Because that seems like, if we're going to hold everybody to the same standard, we should be really clear about this. Like, what does that mean when you say misinformation? If someone fact checks you and they find you to be in error and you do not correct it publicly, what are we supposed to do about that? Should you be banned from being a White House press secretary? Should you be banned from being able to speak on social media because you've been proven to be incorrect, possibly willfully? I think we need free expression. We need free expression to sort it all out. And it's very convenient for people to just want to silence people who say things that they don't like or say things they think are inappropriate. But it's not healthy. The only way we figure out what's right is you let everybody talk. And it's messy and it's complicated. And a lot of times people say things you don't like. But that's how you sort out how you feel about things. It takes a long time. It takes a long time to gather up a true opinion on a subject, and one of the only real ways is to get a view of it from all sides.
In history, we typically, after a period of 50 years or so, look back and condemn any occasion where we have suppressed dissenting views.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to do that here, too.
Blacklisting people,
Yep.
From the Red Scare.
Yep.
Issues that came around civil liberties for certain minority groups during World War II. There just winds up being like a theme, and later we'll look and be like, that was we got a little carried away there. People after the terror, it hasn't been 50 years by any stretch, it's been 20 years, people after the terror attacks at 9/11 who questioned certain orthodoxy about what we should do militarily, right? We're put in a certain place, and now it's like we're dusting off and kind of like re-looking at these early whistleblowers. It'll be interesting to see how the history of this stuff gets written. particularly around questions about like when you dare question COVID orthodoxy.
Yeah.
I've been on, I've had it. I got the vaccine. I was kind of misled because I thought the government was going to try to take my brain over. But I wanted to get in the ring.
Mean?
I wanted to get in the ring with them and fight it out, but nothing happened,
What do you mean?
Oh, just I'm making a joke about the different people's concerns about the vaccine, and I got the vaccine, and I felt like nothing happened to me.
Oh, some people thought it had mind control agents in it?
I've heard.
Really?
I've heard all manner of things.
I've heard magnets. I've seen people. Do you see people? There's hours and hours on YouTube, or at least there were, of people putting magnets on their injection site, and they think that somehow or another there's like a chip in there
to draw it back out.
No, they think there's a chip in there, like the magnet sticks.
Oh, no, I didn't even try that.
I mean, I don't know why it sticks. I mean, I don't know if it's bullshit. I don't know if they're making things up.
Yeah, I guess my primary point around that is that I have through this, I have been on many sides of issues and have largely tried to just like roll through it and not have people tell me what to do, right? So, and looking at travel restrictions, I'm like, oh, I want to avoid travel restrictions, even though I already had COVID.
Right.
I'm like, I'm gonna go get the vaccine because I don't want to have any kind of travel restriction.
Which one did you get?
Moderna.
Did you have any side effects? Because that's the strongest one.
No, yeah, for a couple hours I felt a little weird.
How many months was it between your infection with COVID and then getting the shot?
I think I got it as soon as, I think you had to wait. I think I got it as soon as I could.
So like 3 months or something?
Yeah, whatever the hell they told you.
Yeah.
I was concerned about, like I said, I was concerned about travel restrictions. And I just was kind of like going along with the program.
And did you get 2 shots or did you get 1?
2 shots.
2 shots?
Whatever distance apart. Yeah. And nothing really happened. I didn't really get that. I got sleepy when I had COVID. I got achy when I had the vaccine. But, I've held all these different opinions, like deep frustration. I went from being that right away, I was like, oh, it's just a thing we're going to have to live with. Everyone will wind up getting it. Then I got like really hopeful that maybe it'll somehow go away and everybody get vaccinated and it'll go away. Then the vaccine came out and people I know that got vaccinated got COVID. Then I was back to thinking that everybody's just going to wind up getting it. So I have sat on so many sides. Like I've sat on every possible side of this thing.
Yeah.
And at this point now, you get to a point where it's kind of like throw my hands up in the air, and it's becomes, and as I've thrown my hands up in the air about like not understanding it, losing faith that anybody really understands it right now, it's been now difficult for me to see people getting punished for challenging the orthodoxy when everything has changed so much. It's like, how could any person sit right now and act like you have like the authoritative view on what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who's played along with the program every step of the way. And when I come out the other side of it, I have like a deep skepticism. Yeah. And not that I feel that there's I don't feel that there's like some grand master plan. I just have a deep skepticism of anyone coming in and being so positive about something that they're going to punish someone for having some different view. I think at this point it's like pretty fair for people to sit and hash out what they think's going on. In terms of where you're getting at with just like the social media climate and how it has been used in that way to sort of like punish dissenting voices or exclude dissenting voices, I think that I have perhaps an unusual perspective on it, because for my entire career I've dealt with a set of ideas that are inherently controversial. I'm a firearm owner. I support Second Amendment rights. All my material involves guns. We kill animals and eat them, right? These things all existed. Like this set of ideas and set of interests that I had existed pre-social media. So as social media came to be a thing, I've always lived within the context of how do I take things that the people that hold distribution channels are probably going to have a semi-adversarial view of. And how do I find a way to keep dealing with the ideas I want to deal with and distribute the ideas and distribute the imagery and distribute the content that I want to make in a way that conforms to their views so that I can keep doing it. So I feel like I've always like a little bit of been like a like a spy, kind of like living in this other world in some way. Like I'm used to feeling like someone's going to come and take my shit away from me. You know?
Yeah, I see what
Like
you're saying.
like when we first started to run shows on Netflix, I even told I couldn't even get excited about it. I was like, that shit won't be there a day. It won't be there a day.
I remember having this conversation with you because there was like 1 star. You guys had like 1 star. Because back during the star days, people were attacking your show because it was the first show that Netflix had that showed actual hunting.
Yeah. And I was
how did I wanted to talk to you about that. How did that come about? Like, what was the conversation? Because that's a brave move for them to decide to take something that's traditionally been on the Sportsman's Channel or the Outdoor Network and then to put it on Netflix.
We worked with a company that handled distribution, and this is years ago now. We worked with the company that handled international distribution, and the company that handled international distribution had some connections in Netflix, and Netflix purchased what was called a second window.
Were they hesitant at all? Did you have conversations about content or anything?
They may have been hesitant, but they didn't tell us anything about the hesitancy. In fact, I have never, and this is after years, I have never had a discussion over there that even alludes to it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you saw their response when people were getting up in arms about that cuties thing.
Well, that was crazy.
Right? Like
that was
the degree to which there's a thing like the degree to which you stand by producers and the degree to which you stand by your ideas. It just hasn't been a thing. But I assumed I used to wake up every day thinking that, oh, there's no way we're gonna be able to stay on Instagram. There's no way we're gonna be able to be on YouTube.
Right.
There's no way we're gonna be on Twitter. And then at the same time, that I'm like worrying about that, we have, our material gets outward validation from we're on, like a large streaming service. We publish with Random House. So we have certain people who are very, very intimate with our material being okay with it and distributing it and allowing us to monetize it. And at the same time, feeling like someone at any minute is just going to like drop it out because we use firearms. The funniest thing is through all this, it's like you'd imagine we get attacked from the right more than the left.
Really?
Oh, far, yeah. We get attacked from the left and the right, but we get attacked from the right more than we get attacked.
What?
I think it's kind of like I think that so a lot of what we do makes people uneasy. That there's sort of a new, like there's this kind of like new emerging thing that has maybe disrupted some traditional, monopoly they held on certain audiences. It would be that somehow, even though virtually everything we make has firearms in it, every show we put out has firearms in it, is that you don't love firearms enough, which is just like, it's always confusing to me.
So when,
but I mean, we get attacked from the left. Like we get attacked from the left some. It'll always be like a little bit of it'll always feel very nuanced when you're attacked from the left, but we get a lot of heat. Most of the heat we get would be from the right.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
I would have never expected that.
Yeah, it'd be that you like you do something. It's like you're too woke. You're not woke enough. It'd be like you glorify guns, but then the louder voice would be like, but they don't glorify them enough.
Really?
Oh, dude, all the time. It's crazy.
I
think it's because
imagine.
I think it's from being, it's from getting to a position where people, there's some people that probably feel like a little left out.
Yeah, that's probably it.
They feel a little left out, and it's like a little bit like, Durr!
I had a guy explain that to me. It was really interesting. He said, you have to be careful because you give off the impression that you're having a party inside of a walled garden. And he said, people on the outside are like, well, fuck those people. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you're getting a lot of hate in that way, where people misconstrue you purposefully. They do it on purpose because they don't like the feeling that they're not invited to this thing. And some of them might even be your peers. I'm like, wow. I never thought of it that way. He goes, you have to be like, you have to reach out to those people and try to welcome them.
Oh.
And then they'll But I don't want to reach out once they've already been an asshole.
Yeah, I feel like you could find another. I've looked at another thing where I've seen in my life where I've seen that a Christian might be deeply troubled by a Mormon. Okay, and they might be very fixated on the threat of Mormonism. And you'd be like, man, I feel like you'd be worried about devil worshippers.
Yeah.
Like that to me seems like I'd be after the devil worshippers.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, I'm after this thing that's a little bit different than me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's such a crowded, confused world. And when you kind of like survey the enemies, when you sort of find that, you know, you find that the people that are a little bit like, it'd be like if during World War II we had decided to go and like, you know, bomb England because they weren't like totally on board with our plan, rather than staying focused on the freaking Germans. You know, and so I think that a lot of that heat is coming from people who, you know, they're looking and like, you're a lot like us, but maybe you're a little bit different.
Maybe. And it also could be that you're getting all these accolades that they're not. And so then they try to find reasons why you suck.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of them. Plenty of reasons why.
Yeah. It's interesting. And that's one of the more interesting things about social media, right? It's like a lot of the things that if people have said sort of behind closed doors, now they're said in a sort of an open forum.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it just shows you how petty. And also like a lack of emotional development that some intelligent people have. Like they could be accomplished and intelligent and successful, and they still act like fucking babies. Like they're still, this is like why do you care? Like if there's a show and you don't think they glorify guns enough, and you're angry at them, like, do you have enough shit in your own life to focus on? Like, why are you focusing on that? It's usually because, you know, you're probably at least a little jealous, unless you've done something egregious, like you've actually campaigned against Second Amendment rights, which of course I know you would never do, but if you did, like, then they'd be like, well, this is crazy, this fucking show, they use guns and then they campaign against guns, so hypocritical. But that's not the case. No. So for you saying that you're getting a lot of hate from the right, that means there's a lot of dummies on the right. That's what I think.
Yeah, you know, I do wonder about it. And again, it's you get, like, you experience this all the time. You get in trouble for having and talk about getting in trouble from the right and the left. You get in trouble for having conversations with certain people.
Yeah.
You know, we had a Native American historian and activist named Taylor Keene in our podcast. So he said some things that people view as controversial around, like, you know, around things like picking up a arrowhead.
I listened to that.
Picking an arrowhead up off the ground, or the land back movement, right? So people are pissed.
Yeah.
They're pissed that, you know, he said the things he said.
Yeah.
You deal with this all the time.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson came on the show, and people are then mad about that you talk to him.
Yeah.
They're mad that we had
you platformed him.
Yeah, we had a woman named Rue Mapp on from Outdoor Afro. Okay, so she talked about her experience as a black woman in the outdoors, right? Great conversation. People get really pissed. They're like pissed. They're just mad that she came on. And she said, well, not only in talking to her, Rue pointed out to me that people are going to be mad at her for talking to me.
Yeah.
After we got in the recording, she's like, you know, you're going to get in trouble for talking to me. And you know what's funny? And you probably don't realize this. I'll get a bunch of shit from coming talking to you guys.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it was an interesting conversation. I enjoyed it a lot.
But the right, they get, as much as people on the right now are against cancel culture, you know, and I'm glad they are. They seem like oftentimes representations of that perspective seem to be guilty. Like they seem to be guilty of their own crime by being very eager to restrict certain voices that don't conform to them. And I do I do try to like invite a variety of voices, okay, and represent like kind of opinions that I think are interesting, and not every opinion that comes out in my material is necessarily my opinion, but I try to do it, and it just makes people mad because people want you to be their thing.
Yeah, I experienced that with Evan Hafer from Black Rifle Coffee. Mm-hmm. You know, he was experiencing some weird cancel culture shit from the right online. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I called him. I go, come on the podcast. I go, we got to talk about this because this is so ridiculous. Like, these are the people that have been rallying against this for the 4 years that Trump was in office and rallying against this for the year that Biden's been in office, or less than a year. And now they're doing it. They're doing it. They're doing the same thing. It's almost like, well, they get to do it. We'll do it too. Mm-hmm. And it didn't make any sense.
No, they weren't going after the devil worshippers.
No, they were going after people that were very similar to them, but also wildly successful. That's part of the problem. Like Black Rifle Coffee is a wildly successful organization.
No, I watched that with great interest. I'm friends with Evan. We have a hunt together coming up. I watched with great interest to be like, how, like the friendly fire incidents.
Yeah. How is anyone justifying that? Yeah. It's nonsense.
We're fighting people.
We're definitely that.
In this country.
Yeah. Well, people love to talk shit too. And, you know, and they get caught up in petty bickering.
Do you know what though? I got to say this, man. All the divisiveness, it's like the thing that blows my mind though is when I go about my daily existence. If I didn't know it wasn't all going on from the news and social media and stuff, when I go about my daily existence and just the interactions I have with people,
yeah,
fuck, I would never know what was happening.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Because that environment is...
I would just think that like, hey...
Because the environment of social media is a terrible environment for human communication. The environment when you're going about your daily business is normal. You're talking to people. And most of the time, like sometimes people have like a weird opinion of someone and then they talk to them and go, oh, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Like this happened to me a couple of days ago. Someone told me that there's this business thing that I'm doing, and like this guy, he's a real problem. He's very full of himself. You're not going to enjoy it. I'm like, wow, shit. Okay, well, I'm just going to put my best foot forward and see what happens. I meet the guy and he's wonderful. Mm-hmm. He's friendly. He's nice. And then I'm like, maybe that other person was a fucking pain in the ass. And they met this guy, or maybe that guy had a cold that day. I mean, I don't know. When he met that other person, maybe who the fuck knows what it is? Like people are different on different days for different reasons. But I had it in my head, but then I met him and he was great. Yeah. I had a great time. So something about human interaction when you're together, the way we're supposed to, look at each other in the eye, have a conversation, be close to each other, like physically in the room with each other. That's how humans are meant to communicate. When we're communicating anonymously through text messages or arguing about things on Facebook and these fucking long verbose passages, like it's not normal. It's not a normal way where you get to just fucking expand upon something for paragraph after paragraph where no one says, well, that's fucking wrong and that's not true, or that's not what I said and this is not what I meant and you're changing this and taking this out of context. People get more angry with each other when you don't get to respond. When someone says something and you're like, well, that's not me. Fuck you. And they it's designed in a way that is not compatible with human emotions, with normal human interactions, with social cues, and reading each other's like Louis C.K. had a bit about this once about kids and kids doing things online, that kids like to be mean online because it's like fun and they don't feel anything. Like if some kid is in front of you and they say something mean and then the other kid feels bad and starts crying, they go, oh, well, that doesn't feel good. Yeah. But they say it online, they're like, oh, fuck him. Hey, you fat fuck. And they say it and then they don't feel anything because there's no one there. Mm-hmm. So, but the impact on the other person is real. It's a terrible way to communicate. And this is the way that a lot of ideas get discussed. A lot of people are communicating that way. And as detailed by these documentaries like the Social Dilemma, and these different books that have been written about this problem, and that woman who just testified, which is kind of crazy, right? The day the woman's testifying about the problems with Facebook is the day Facebook goes down. And there's a lot of conspiracies about that, right? But that this is an issue. It's an issue that they're aware of inside the company, and that they chose profit over rectifying this issue. They're like, well, this is what we do, though. They're like, we're making a lot of money doing this, And I think that in the wild, when people are just running into each other, we're still just people.
Isn't there maybe I'm wrong about this, but isn't the inception of that app like what they were fixing to make? Was they fixing to make a way you vote people up and down?
I think it was just a dating app. Wasn't Facebook originally a dating app?
To vote, yes, to who you wanted to be, yeah. There were other apps around the same time where like that, where you would find someone hot and you'd click, yeah, they're hot, and they'd get ranked higher.
So it's like, maybe it hasn't drifted too far.
Maybe, yeah. Well, the thing about Facebook is I think when they do their prognosis on the future, it skews so old. Like it's young people are dropping off of the use of Facebook pretty radically. They see if that's true. Pretty sure that's true. I read something about it today, but I was only gave it a cursory examination. But I think what they're saying is that Facebook is kind of doomed. And so they're in this sort of desperate, even though they're making billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, the end. Yeah, you could see the end in sight with your age thing.
Yeah, whereas TikTok is the opposite. It scales very low. Like my fucking kids are into TikTok. A lot of people, young folks, are into TikTok. Instagram is kind of like the middle ground. Twitter is where people go to throw shit at each other.
Yeah.
Here it is. Facebook misled investors about shrinking user base. Complaint to SEC, Facebook mishandling of duplicate accounts was extensive fraud. So what is it saying about user base? Facebook misleading investors about shrinking teen and young adult user bases and about the actual number of Facebook users. Former employee Francis Haugen alleged in a whistleblower complaint. Facebook stock valuation is based almost entirely on predictions of future advertising revenue. The company cites evidence showing that Facebook has for years past and ongoing violated U.S. securities laws by making material misrepresentations and omissions in statements to investors and prospective investors, including through filings with the SEC, testimony to Congress, online statements, and media stories. Facebook has misrepresented core metrics to investors and advertisers, including the amount of content produced on its platform. What does it say about single users, accounts, old people? Where does it say? Fraud against here it is. It failed to disclose internal data showing a contraction of the user base in important demographics, including American teenagers and young adults. The company has also hidden the extent of which content production per user has been in long-term decline, the complaint said. But obviously, these are allegations from a whistleblower. We don't know if they're true. So
that was a good little bit of news thing there. You put that in the end.
Yeah, you got to. Because who the fuck knows? She might be crazy. And apparently she's donated a lot of money to AOC and like some heavy-duty left-wing. And she was like upset that if you are a young woman, this is a very good complaint, a valid complaint, that if you're a young woman, Facebook will if you have issues with anorexia, Facebook will send you anorexia content your way, which may exacerbate someone's predilection towards anorexia.
Yeah.
Which it's fucking terrifying. They're the people that get it the worst, apparently, is young girls. Young girls get social media. They get the impact of social media worse than anybody. According to Jonathan Haidt in The Coddling of the American Mind, he talked about that higher suicide rates, self-harm, all that stuff, the bullying, online bullying. Young girls are the victims of that more than anybody.
I read a statistic that of teenage girls, I can't remember, like a pretty staggering majority of teenage girls go to sleep at night with some level of anxiety about social media.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
But our kids now, they're not on social media and they don't read the news, so they don't know that everybody hates everybody now. And when they see someone coming down the road,
they wave.
In their head, it's like, this guy's probably not bad.
Yeah.
Let's go talk to that guy.
Well, that was like we were saying.
They're totally cool with everybody, and no one's really let them down yet.
the amount of things that Facebook has influence on, they own WhatsApp, they own Instagram, they own Facebook, and this gigantic multimedia empire. I mean, it's enormous. There was an argument,
but you have to, in some way, you have to sit and and acknowledge that they made a thing. Mm-hmm. They made a thing that's useful.
Yep.
And for me, as a content producer, me as a media personality, I'm able to use the tools they made and reach people that I otherwise wouldn't make.
Yep.
So it's like I can't be like unbridled in my hatred but I didn't come up with the thing.
right?
Someone else came up with it, and it's very useful.
Yep. Yeah, there's a real good argument there, but there's also an argument that it needs some sort of regulation, because in other countries they've used it to have people murdered, to lie about, to overthrow governments. They've used it to put out political rivals have put out false information completely unchecked that's led people to kill people and overthrow.
Sure, but you could make the same condemnation of our First Amendment rights.
You could.
You
yes,
could say like it's,
but it doesn't
people
have
use their First Amendment privileges, and it creates riots. They use their First Amendment privileges, and it radicalizes people. Mm-hmm. It's just gotten too far. It's too much now.
It's too much influence, right? The idea is that first of all, Facebook comes on phones in a lot of countries. Like in a lot of countries, they make deals with cellular providers so that, like, if you buy a phone,
it was like when U2 was able to put that album on all those iPhones.
Yeah, remember how mad people got? That was probably the worst thing U2 ever did.
Oh, dude, that thing still, you can't. Yeah, like now and then, when I turn my truck on, it somehow like finds that album still. I'm like, what? Stop that.
When the Bluetooth syncs up and just randomly plays a song, yeah, you're like, that's not on my fucking playlist. Yeah, that was boy, what a fucking bad PR move that was. Yeah, I mean, look, these conversations are interesting, and you're right. There's no like definitive yes or no, good or bad, because they're new. They're really new discussions. There hasn't been 100 years of social media influence where we get to have an understanding of what kind of impact this has on our society.
Yeah, and I still feel like I'm like a mouse in someone's kitchen, man. Like that I'm able to be in there doing my shit. And haven't been found out yet.
Yeah.
Get thrown out.
I get it too, especially with your line of business. And then when you see these new regulations that YouTube's putting out, and you realize like, oh, well, this might be a real fucking problem.
Oh yeah, when I look at people who their livelihood is built strictly around YouTube, it feels like, oh my God, does it feel vulnerable to me?
Very.
Unless you're on there showing like how to make, crochet or like make bead bracelets and shit. I don't know.
Or you're doing those videos like Sniper Wolf does where you're reacting to things like, oh my God, did you see that? Oh my God. Like, she's funny and she's silly. It's G-rated.
Yeah, so maybe you're not. Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people that I look and I'm like, man, you being what you're into, and that you're only doing it there, I'd have a hard time resting at night. I would feel like someone, like the man was coming for you.
That influenced my decision to leave and go to Spotify, for sure. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't even trust Apple. I didn't trust because I knew that there were certain episodes, like when Alex Jones came on my podcast once, the ratings went down. Like there was no update in the ratings for like a week. And when I tell you it was my biggest podcast at that point in time, I think eventually Elon Musk became bigger and a few other ones became bigger. But at that time when Alex came on for episode 911, it was not just the biggest, but it was the biggest by far. And so
that wasn't reflected.
Not only was it not reflected, there was no ratings. The ratings stopped. And then when it came back, that episode was ranked like, number 5 or 6 or something like that, where other episodes where I knew what the downloads were number 2 or 1. I'm like, how is that?
Yeah.
Well, they're doing some shenanigans. They didn't want that episode. I think somebody, I don't know if it's true. I might be wrong. But I think someone didn't want that episode to be number 1. Because the numbers were crazy. It was like 16, 18 million downloads. It was nuts. And it was because it was a wild, chaotic, alcohol and marijuana-fueled conspiracy ride with a maniac.
Yeah. Well, at a certain level of influence, that people do there at a certain level of influence, there are people that are able to pay detailed attention to very specific things. I'm sure, like, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that your show drew some special level of attention, the same way that there were people at Twitter assigned to Trump's tweets.
For sure. Yeah.
And then all the other, like, you could write insane stuff that would never get discovered.
Yeah.
But at a point, you're like, someone is forced to pay attention.
It had gotten to the point where the show was always number one. So the episodes were always number one. So if it was always number one and then he came on and it was number one, that became a problem. And then the numbers were so high. You know, it was an interesting moment. But it was also like, I mean, they were great. They never censored me. They never told me what to do or what not to do. No episodes ever got taken down. I mean, Apple is essentially, they're just an aggregator, right? They're
You're
not
saying Apple never took your episodes down?
Never once, never censored anything, never gave me a hard time, never gave any sort of criticism or anything. They were great. But they did a weird thing where they never really got involved financially in podcasts. And I think it's a tremendous business mistake. Tremendous business
Well, they're
mistake.
trying to rectify that now in a way that won't be maybe so great for producers.
Yeah, what are they trying to do now?
Oh, just like move away from applying that it's just like a random distributor. Like if they were to do some kind of paywall situation, what it would do to download numbers.
It's hard to get people to pay. There's too much shit that's out there for free. You know, there's so much good content today. There's 1 million podcasts, 1 million. I mean, if you go back to the day where Friends was the number one show in the country, or Seinfeld was the number one show in the country, how many fucking shows were there? Was there 20? I mean, how many fucking shows were there? How many what's like number one? I mean, what is in prime time? I mean, Jesus Christ, you have 7 days a week and you have 3 hours every night or whatever prime time is. And out of all those shows, that's not a lot. You know, we got 50 shows, and then you got the cable networks, which don't, really get the same kind of numbers back then. And then you have a show that's number one. All these things are sanctioned. Everything is on a network. Everything is on a network that's broadcast through the government's pipes. Everything is all like censored, and there's advertising that's inserted. And this is a wild west of content where anyone can have something and anyone can and a lot of them are good. So if you have 1 million shows, which is really what there is right now, for someone to come along and say, I want you to pay, good fucking luck. Good fucking luck. I mean, even if you have a really good show, even if you have the best show, like if this show, if I did that with, I'm not saying my show's the best show, but if I did, it's very highly rated, right? If I decided to make people pay for it, I would lose almost everybody.
Think so?
Yeah, I think so. Almost unless I was the victim of some sort of censorship and I was a martyr. And then I put it on my website and I had everybody download it from there and, make some sort of a contribution. And, that's the only way we could keep it alive. Then you could get people to realize, like, fuck the man. And they would probably jump in. What is this? There's 2 million. 2 million podcasts. Wow, I'm wrong. I'm wrong by 1 million. As of 2021, there's over 2 million podcasts and more than 48 million podcast episodes. Holy shit. This is pretty startling growth considering there was just over 500,000 active podcasts from just 3 years ago in 2018. That's what's nuts. These podcast statistics are completely in line with the fact that podcasts are slowly going mainstream. Bitch, that's mainstream. That is mainstream. That is not slowly going mainstream. In fact, it's estimated that 78% of the U.S. population is now aware of what a podcast is, up from 64% in 2008. They're slow playing this because the reality is 75% are listening. There's a lot of people listening to podcasts. We regularly get episodes at 10, 11 million downloads. It's normal. It's like the number of people that are tuning in to shows is crazy. It's crazy. But it's still just a tiny piece of the population. You go in worldwide, there's 330 whatever the fuck million people there are in this country.
Yeah.
And then worldwide, you're dealing with 8 billion. Really, 11 million is just like a tiny little drop in the bucket.
Do you imagine you'll be doing a podcast in 10 years if you had to guess?
I don't think like that. I never thought I would be doing this 10 years ago.
Well, I'm inviting you to think like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering. I don't know why not, because I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
When I stop enjoying it, I don't want to mention any names, but there's certain people that do shows where people feel like they're phoning it in. If anybody ever really feels like I'm phoning it in, I'll stop.
Yeah.
If I feel like I'm phoning it in, I'll definitely stop. Or I'll stop phoning it in. But I don't think I'm ever going to stop wanting to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Like if I can have you and I just talk, I always want to talk to you. You're an interesting dude. If we get a camera on us and other people can get in on it and they enjoy it, like there's someone out there on a treadmill right now enjoying the shit out of this. That's what I like that. I like it. You're providing something that people actually enjoy.
Yeah.
As long as it's enjoyable to me, I think it'll still be enjoyable to other people because enthusiasm, like genuine enthusiasm is contagious, and I find that if I watch someone that's cooking on TV or someone that's making things or someone that's talking about something they're passionate about, even if I have zero interest in it, if it's a genuine enthusiasm, which is why when I do this show, I don't do it based on famous people. I don't try to get people that I know will get big ratings. There's zero consideration of that.
I've always appreciated that about you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because I'm only a little teeny bit famous, but I get to come on.
Well, I'm always interested in talking to you. My interest is in my interests, So
yeah.
if I don't, and I've had, that was one of the interesting conversations in the beginning, like with Netflix. Like, who are going to be the episodes? Who's going to be the first week? Like, what are the big names for the first week? I'm like, that's not happening.
Yeah,
There's not going to be any of that. There's not going to be any of that. We're going to try to set it up and I don't think like that. And because I don't think like that, it stays, I hate the word organic, but it stays organic. Because it's just, I like talking to people. I like talking to interesting people. And as long as I think they're interesting, I want to talk to them. Whether it's a fucking author that no one's ever heard of, that has some book that's interesting, or a photographer that covers wars, or, whatever. A comic that no one ever heard of, but I think they're talented. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to keep doing it. As long as maybe it won't be interesting to other people, or maybe way less people will find it interesting because the medium will have shifted and it'll have moved on. But I didn't do it in the beginning ever thinking it would be the #1 podcast in the world. I did it thinking like, oh, it'd be good to get high with my friends and talk shit, and here we are. Yeah. Fucking, how many thousand? What are we, 1,000 something? 17.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I've told you this every time I've been on your show, but Helen Cho.
Yes, very well.
The first time I ever heard the word someone say podcast was Helen Cho in reference to you.
Yeah.
I could take you and show you where she was sitting and where I was sitting.
I think that was 2011 when we met, right?
I was like, a what? She's like, just listen. You just don't just go. I was like, what is that? Probably said something about how it sounds like a stupid idea. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, it's funny. You were in it early.
Yeah, 2009. Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten into it without your encouragement.
I knew you should get into it right away. The first time we ever did one, I'm like, wow, that guy's interesting. Because I enjoyed your show, The Wild Within, before you ever did MeatEater. I remember watching you make a fucking boat out of some moose skin and going down a river and the whole deal. And I was like, wow, I go, this is a fucking cool little show and interesting kind of subjects. And before you had ever taken me hunting, I'd always had this fascination with hunting. I'd always watched like Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild, and I'd watched a bunch of these hunting shows because I would be like, but that's probably the best way to eat. Like to get the meat yourself. That way you really understand where it's coming from versus this weird sort of separation between you and the act of the animal dying where you don't really understand what you're doing. You're just eating meat,
One of the 2 times I thought my career was over was when that Wild Within show on Travel Channel didn't take off.
What's the other time?
When my first book didn't take off.
The Buffalo book?
No. My first book was called Scavenger's Guide to Haute Cuisine.
Oh, that's right.
But that book's still in print, man.
Yeah.
No, in the end, no. But when it came out, it didn't. I had tons of media around it. Just no one bought the damn book, man. And I thought I was over. There's like this. I don't know if he actually said it. There's this thing that's always attributed to Woody Allen. Man, maybe he said it. I don't know. It's like something to the effect of like his movies are always good enough that they let him make another one.
Yeah.
And I felt for a minute that my book hadn't done good enough to get to make another one, but then someone took a bet on me again, and I was able to make a successful book. But yeah, doing that Wild Within on Travel Channel, dude. They ordered 8 episodes. They ran them all, but we just wrapped the 8th episode. Okay. I mean, we were like getting in a car to go to the airport from the location where we were filming in West Texas. And I got a call that they were not, it was effectively canceled, even though they ran some through. And I thought that somehow, like you were done.
Yeah.
You were done.
Could have been.
But in that year too, you still had to jump through all the hoops.
Yeah.
And I was just didn't realize it, like emerging into a thing where, like you said, like the Wild West or you're in the open ocean or whatever the hell. Like I was just emerging into a place where like the time lined up to that you didn't need to be. You could still do things.
Yeah.
You could still do things. Otherwise, like, I don't know, a decade earlier, 20 years earlier or something, you'd have had to go crawl into a hole, man.
Yeah. Well, I was a part of TV that decade earlier when you had to get cast on a sitcom or, Fear Factor. I had to get cast on that, and that's the only way people got to know who you were. You had to do something else. You had to do something.
I could never even believe that those dudes, I was kind of shocked when the guy bought that show.
How come?
Because he came from an unexpected background, didn't last long, bought some shows, none of them took off. We didn't know we had no idea what that show was about. It was kind of a mess. It was fun, but it was kind of a mess. And then like when that was over and we started making MeatEater, I was like, I had learned enough from that Wild Within BS to like understand very well what I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And it was going to be extremely stripped down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going to be like, and I was going to have a very high, like a very high level of influence over everything that happened.
Well, I remember
I learned enough to know that.
I remember a conflict that you talked to me about where they tried to release an animal so that you could shoot it. Like they wanted to guarantee that you got a moose, so they were going.
Oh yeah, well it was a conversation where we were talking about how much time it takes, and I remember it was early on before we started to film, and I'm not gonna name who it was, but this producer said, I was like, well, you just don't know, it takes time and all this, and he's like, that's why there's animal wranglers.
And your show is the opposite of that now, because some of your best episodes are unsuccessful episodes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones are the one you're talking about your dad. There's no music, and you're on the top of a mountain just discussing things.
And it was like, Sky Island Solitaire, some play on Edward Abbey's Desert Solitaire. Man, I used to be worried sick about those ones, but
those are some of the best ones.
Yeah, they work.
Yeah, they're some of the best ones. And
we call them skunkers.
Yeah, but they're some of the most realistic too, because that's really what happens. That's part of the thing. It's one of the reasons why it's so interesting, because it's difficult. And that's like I said earlier, I think that's one of the things that's hardest to convey when you're just seeing a success. And then the success is always towards the end. It's all like you expect it, like a movie. You want the good guy. The good guy's going to win. He's James Bond. He's going to survive, And sometimes no.
I feel like I should get all circumspect about media right now, but I don't know.
It's media reflects the culture at a certain point in its ability to express itself, and the culture has shifted its ability to express itself radically because of the internet. This podcast is a great example of that. There's nothing could have existed like this 20 years ago. Your podcast is another great example of that. Like you found your niche in that stream. You caught that wave and, you wrote it out, like perfect timing. Like from the Wild Within to MeatEater to podcasting to the MeatEater empire now. It's all internet based, all influenced, all of it with these different streams of distribution. It's fascinating.
Oh.
Yeah.
My oldest boy, my wife said the other day that he was saying that he hopes MeatEater sticks around long enough for him to get involved. And we had a good laugh about it.
It's great.
But I was like, oh man, I don't know, buddy.
I bet it will.
You might need to.
I bet it will.
Yeah, I keep encouraging him to join the military.
Really?
Oh yeah.
For discipline?
Just something. I think I have a guilty I was very close. My dad served. I was very, very close to going in the military, and I feel like I have a guilty conscience. And this thing happened to me where years ago I was invited by someone to go down to give a talk at Fort Bragg. It was the 3rd Special Forces Group. It was in Fort Bragg, and I went down to give a talk, and it was interesting because I call them kids, or not kids. They're all guys about a decade younger than I was, 30, early 30s, and sitting there in front of these guys talking to them, and these are people that had come out of high school. They came out of high school post 9/11 and went into the military, did all their training, became Green Berets, and had spent their entire adult life either training for or in Afghanistan, in Iraq, since they were 18.
Wow.
And one of these guys, at one point, he opens up the Fort Bragg phone book, like an actual physical phone book. And we got to talking, and he opens it up, and he's like, goes to the divorce attorney section in that phone book, and just pages and you know what I mean? And you realize just the enormous, the enormous cost and the enormous sacrifice. And I've always felt like I was so close and didn't do it. It's always bugged me. Like I feel little, like chicken shit that I didn't do it. And I feel like other people had to do like a thing that didn't happen for me. And so, maybe in some way I want, I would like him to go set the record straight for the family. But my old man, he was one of the biggest voices against. He didn't understand, why would you enlist when there's no war? What are you going to do? That was his take on it, because he enlisted during the war.
Right.
He's like, well, if there's a war, you enlist. But I mean, if there's no war, I mean, what are you going to do down there? And I listened to him, But yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, he's a little kid. I'm not going to lean on him too hard about it, but I feel like he would be setting things back right again.
But do you feel like you're worried that you might want him to do something that maybe he wouldn't do otherwise because you didn't do it and you feel guilty?
He's young. He's of age where I could kind of say, I mean, if he was 17, I'd probably handle this conversation differently. Mm-hmm. If he was 17 and going for it, then, but when he says like what he's going to do or whatever, for whatever reason, my instinct is to encourage him to go into service.
Let's talk. Figure it out. Figure it out in a few years.
Yeah, he's
Maybe
got
he'll wind
a
up
while.
with you. I got to wrap this up.
Yeah,
for sure.
I
got to end this. I got to get out of here. It's always a pleasure. Tell everybody where they could find MeatEater. It's themeateater.com, because you guys still haven't bought MeatEater.com.
Oh, dude, it's such a long, weird story, man. But no, themeateater.com is a great place to go. I'm on Instagram at Steve Rinella. If you go to, wherever you could buy books, go to Apple Books or whatever.
And get the American Buffalo audio version, because you finally do the
I do that, but mainly right now go and go get MeatEater's Campfire Stories, Close Calls, and then also we're doing a fundraiser right now at themeateater.com, where we're doing a fundraiser for our land access initiative, where we raise money to improve and enhance places where you hunt and fish. And we got a big auction going on right now. We got a signed guitar from Luke Combs. We got all the kinds of like a raccoon hide, antelope skull and stuff, all used on the episodes, all up for auction. You can buy Giannis Putelis' first pheasant tail, knives, all kinds of stuff. And we're going to use all that for our land access initiative.
All right. Awesome. All right. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.